The star of today's episode of Smart Bear Live is a founder who's bootstrapped a $1 million a year business as a digital nomad. He's now looking at a flat growth curve and a potential new juicy market segment, but he's not quite sure how to go to there. So we're going to help him. And who is we, you might ask? I'm Jason Cohen. I'm known online as Smart Bear. I've run and founded 2 unicorns in the past 25 years, both bootstrapped and funded, and I've been writing about startups for most of that time. And joining me to help our star founder is Rob Walling. So Rob has more experience understanding and helping bootstrap software founders than probably anyone else on earth because he's done it himself and then he's helped thousands of startups over 20 years. He's done it through his blog and then his podcast, Startups for the Rest of Us, which has about 80 billion episodes. I checked to make sure that number was right. He's written 5 books. He runs MicroConf, which is definitely the best conference for bootstrap software founders. And then together with Einar Volset, he runs TinySeed. Rob does a lot of stuff, which is one of the very few funds that make sense for companies that have the bootstrapper mindset, the bootstrapper culture, bootstrapper goals, but they want to take just like a little bit of money from someone who understands and can help. So I'm a proud investor and mentor at TinySeed and a proud speaker at MicroConf. And Rob was an angel investor in my company, WP Engine, and that did well. So we have a long history together, professionally and personally, and I'm thrilled to sit by him today. So welcome, Rob.
Thanks so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
So together, Rob and I are going to help the star of the show, Jesse Schoberg, with his company Drop-In Blog. Now, Jesse's living the life that a lot of people wish they had. His company makes over $1 million a year, which he bootstrapped with 2 co-founders and runs as a digital nomad. He moves from Barcelona to Bangkok and maybe everywhere in between and maybe not. I'm not sure. I guess he'll tell us. He's got thousands of customers, so that's nice, with a low churn of 2% per month, so I guess that means they like it. And he's got a fully distributed workforce, which also supports his nomadic lifestyle. So he's got a product with high margins, people that love it, and he builds it while living anywhere in the world. So it's pretty badass. And so what is this great product? Drop-In Blog is exactly what it sounds like. It's a perfect name. You drop it into any website. So say you already have a website for your product or service, and you want to add a robust blog inside the existing site style and layout for things like content marketing or AI visibility, SEO, stuff like that. And so you can just throw it in there. It's really easy. So it's a great idea. It's got 10 years of execution behind it, thousands of happy customers. And so, of course, what's the problem with that? Sounds pretty good. So the problem is that growth has been tapping out in the last few years in the segment of customers that got him to this point. And so Jesse does see a new cohort of customers that looks promising and might result in a stronger business model. There's been some pricing changes recently, but he's still not quite sure how to shift into that segment and make it scalable. So Jesse, first of all, welcome. And second of all, I just want to say out loud, it's brave of you to come out here as the star of the show today and put all your challenges on the table so that other people can learn or even commiserate with you. So thank you. And Rob and I will try to make it worth it by making a lot of progress today on that.
Well, hey, thanks a lot for having me, and that was a very flattering intro. I feel like, that sounded pretty cool. I don't know if we need to do this, but
yeah,
appreciate that, and I appreciate both of you guys' time. This is great, and just looking forward to digging in and seeing what we can do for the next chapter of the company, which me and my co-founders and team are very excited to go on, and I think we got some ideas here. So after watching episode 1 the other week, I'm ready to get the punches in.
That's right. We got to start punching. Like enough, Mr. Nice Guy. So actually, maybe you can start by filling in a little of the detail of the current situation, like who's this current segment of customers that makes up your current customer base, what's the new segment that you're seeing that you want to shift into, and stuff like that.
You bet. So we started like most bootstrap founders, we're self-serve only, and we've got these approachable plans for other smaller companies, very product-led, etc. And we did that. We're very good at SEO, kind of dogfooding our own product as well. And as usual, which of course we didn't know when we started, but now we do know because of friendly folks like the both of you creating content, explaining about things like running out of marketing channels and tapping out to max MRR, etc. Eventually, over time, that segment, which is fairly broad, actually, our product does kind of work in many scenarios. It is a blogging platform that is, I feel like our only real differentiator is we're more targeted at business bloggers that are trying to actually do content marketing versus personal bloggers that are telling their thoughts or whatever.
Well, because personal bloggers don't have a corporate website that they're trying to drop it into, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but I bet there's some businesses that are better than others, right?
Thing.
Because like if I'm a restaurant, maybe I'm unlikely to even think about that. So I bet there's even better segments. Even besides the not pivot, but even besides the expansion you're thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, our popular segments have always been course creators. So we do very well with like Thinkific and Teachable. And then also e-commerce. So we do well with Shopify and BigCommerce and BigCartel and these. As well as like the general website builders, Framer, Webflow, this kind of stuff. And of course, like the custom sites, right? So this is kind of our quote problem, is that we're tech nerds and we build all the stuff and we make it really great and whatever, but then we're kind of everywhere, right? But so then it's like in the new world, we're like building the React framework and we're building the this and that and all of this kind of stuff. But yeah, eventually it's like still the same problem. SEO is the channel, self-serve coming in. And so I guess I could say briefly, a couple of years ago, we start to notice this. And what we decided is that...
when you say notice this, notice what?
Notice that the growth is tapping out and that the churn is catching up to the growth amount. But then at the same time, we were playing around with this product called Apollo, and there's other ones that do this de-anonymization stuff. So you put a script on your website and it says tells you who's visiting the site. Okay. Not like the person, but it'll say like 3 people from WP Engine came to your website last month. Mm-hmm. And so we were looking at these stats, and about 5% of our visitors were from like huge companies. And we had nothing to sell them because our largest plan was $99 a month. And all of our messaging was, we're the friendly, small, like bootstrappy guys, and that.
But what was the conversion rate on that 5%?
0. That's the point. And so,
right, but it's only 5%, and half of the people in the world work at a big company. That's a real stat.
I guess
if half the people will work at a real company and only 5% come to the website and don't buy, that just means they're not good customers.
But my thought is that there were people that were interested, that were in this segment, and we had sold none. So then I was like, oh, and then it's like,
you say people, okay, it's 1 out of 20. Like, so who cares? Like,
yeah, well, we did because we were tapped out on the other one, and we were just trying to figure out what the hell to do.
So you were tapped out because you feel there's no more opportunity in small business to drop a blog into a website.
More the marketing channels we were good at, we were pretty maxing
and so
out.
Therefore, a channel an opportunity that was only 5% of what you're currently getting was better than any other idea you had to also grow by 5% in some other channel for your existing base that you're actually good at. Like, in other words, if it's 5%, it's like, all right, we could grow 5% if we captured all of them. We could grow 5% more, which is not actually significant. And you're saying that would be easier to go to a new market segment that you're not successful in your brand or product in. It would be better to go there for a 5% lift rather than trying to just go to our existing customer segment where our product and brand is right and try to get a 5% lift just in marketing or sales or something.
Well, I wasn't trying to get a 5% lift. I was trying to validate that these customers exist and would be interested in our product, which we could sell at a higher price point, which would open up new marketing channels that we weren't using.
Okay, but they're not interested in the current one because there's zero conversions. So I guess if I'm trying to interpret what you're saying, you're hoping that 5% wants to pay 10 times more for a different product. Then it would be 50% of your revenue, and now we're cooking.
Yeah. And so that's what we did.
But the current product they don't want, because as you said, it was 0 conversions. That means I don't want it.
Right. So let me finish then. So maybe you're right, and we could have had this conversation then, and maybe I wouldn't have done this, but I didn't know what to do because we had maxed out.
No, I understand.
We couldn't move the needle. So we updated our brand. We rewrote all the copy on our website to attract more of this customer base. And then we created some plans that were for those people. And then they started selling. Not a ton, but they did start selling. And we also started doing demos for those.
I'm glad they sell, but let me ask this. How did you know, given that the current brand and product they didn't want, and you didn't normally sell to them because even just the amount of traffic is only 5%. So you don't know anything about them other than they don't want what you had. How did you figure out what to say and what to sell at what price point? Maybe you did some research or something. So like, how did you figure out what it is that this new segment might want?
Yeah, we basically started doing a lot of demo calls. And so before we didn't do any demos. And that was, of course, back to we're the self-serve only or whatever. Well, that line starts flattening out, and all of a sudden, I can do a demo, I can. So we just put the button on, and just said, book a demo. And then of course, these type of customers are the ones who book demos, not regular people, because they don't want to. And then we failed for a while. They would, still not work or whatever. And then we started to learn what they wanted, and we slowly
And how
shaped
did you
that
learn what
business
they
plan
wanted?
by asking them when
Okay,
we
so
were
it
on
was
the
a
demos.
demo, but although that's a sales call normally, you were treating it as like kind of a combo sales call. I hope I get the sale, but I need to learn
Yeah.
from this too.
Yeah. And then when they basically we started learning what they would want, then it would convert more, or we would hear their fears or whatever. And then of course I interviewed as many people as I knew. That wasn't that many that knew something about the segment. So we started adding things more related to them, like invoicing and audit logs and stuff that these kind of businesses want, basically.
Okay, and so what were like the top one or two things that that you think were the unlock with this segment? Like you just mentioned two. Are those like the key things, or what was like the really key things?
Yeah, I think it's generally a combination of those, and then of course it has like more users and stuff. But I think
No, that's good for you because there's more seats to sell. What my question is, what is it that you figured out? If I do this, they'll be super thrilled. So like doing invoices or POs instead of credit card, that's not thrilling them. That's just covering a bar that they have, which is great. And like even the audit trail, it's not thrilling them. It's just covering a bar they have. In the Kano model, you'd say it's just like night.
Yeah, I think the other one is that we're including white glove migrations for those guys.
Okay.
And they need that because they're worried about their SEO breaking, and they have 300 posts or whatever. So I feel like those three are kind of the big ones that kind of made them more interested in those plans. And then we kind of
so invoicing, audit logs, and audit of what? Like who edits the site? That kind of audit log?
Yeah. It's basically just like a huge history of like who logged in and what IP and what they changed and stuff.
Okay, so auditing themselves, not their visitors.
Right. Yeah.
And then the onboarding, whether that's migration or installation, but just onboarding somehow.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I mean, there's some more stuff. Again, it's still a work in progress, which is partially the reason I'm here.
It's something. I mean, I'm not trying to solve anything, but just something for a side note. I didn't hear anything in there that's exciting or that would like light someone up. Everything you told me was like, I just have to have this. I don't have a choice. Or it's useful. There's utility. Obviously, with onboarding, of course, like you're alleviating a fear. It's useful. Like that's great. Like there's nothing wrong with it, right? Like nothing you told me was like exciting. So, for example, I think you've described one of the values of the blog is maybe this helps you get found by LLMs. So if you send something like, here's a big company, like they barely know how to do SEO, but they have such a big brand that they just sort of appear, but they do not know what to do with LLMs. And so we can help them with that. And they're like, oh my God, if I could tell my boss that me in marketing, I'm doing something to get in LLMs, even if like none of us really know how that works, but like if I can still tell that story, and I am trying, like it's true, I'm trying. Like I've solidified my job for the next year or two, by the way. That's what I'm doing for my market. Like if you told me that, I would say, ooh, if I'm a marketer at a big company and I want my job to not go away, because big companies are in fact letting people go, aren't they? Like you just saved my job for frick's sake. That sounds like freaking good. You didn't say that. Now maybe you should take that and say that. But that's what I mean is what I'm missing here. I'm not here. Like I'm hearing useful stuff, and that's great.
Well,
but like, where's the part where they're excited?
One thing that was really confusing for me when we switched to these demo calls with these companies, these tend to be more with like the technical people, because they're the ones like trying to solve this problem at the big company.
Right.
And like those features are more like success, but like what was tough on those calls, and we're still trying to figure out, is like all the features that we built for our self-serve customers, like the SEO stuff and the like these kind of nice to have-y things that are about the UX and things. A lot of times they don't care about that. And then they're like, but the blog goes inside of the existing site and it's going to match and the SEO is going to work.
Right.
And we're like, yeah, that's like our core product offering. And they're like, okay, good.
Okay. So it could be that the customer is technical and not the marketer. Even so, I would still ask, there's no such thing as a product that shouldn't delight a customer.
Right.
If we can't name even one thing.
And that part does from a technical side, but of course we're trying to create this differentiating on the pricing.
They have. No, it does not. It's because they already have the SEO. All you're doing is switching out some tech and bringing them back to where they already were, which is useful, but that is not delight. They're not going and telling other people online, oh my God, this is so cool because of anything, an interaction with customer service. This brand is so neat. The design of this was just perfect. I can't believe how this was designed. Like Linear is just project management, it's just like a Scrum shit. Like, but people are like, oh my God, the design. Oh, it's so fast. Oh, the keyboard shortcuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like none of those aren't even like it does the same as Jira, maybe even less, right? But the design is like, oh my God, people just love it. So like, there's no such thing as a product that couldn't delight people. So again, this isn't like a huge problem to solve. Again, this is an aside, but as an aside, like we can get so far, especially with big companies, we get so far in like where we're just ticking all the boxes. And of course you should, and that's good. But I would also think, especially because your whole thing right now is like, wait, how do I really thrive here in this new space? I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
the
well,
best
part of
delight
thriving,
one that we
and
have.
not just having a product, but thriving is that generating that delight. I haven't heard that yet. So that's just
Delight.
something to consider.
Yeah, the best delight one that we have in the mind is we've been playing around with. We currently have a thing that people do like, which is they connect their Google Analytics and it shows a more easy to digest version of their Google Analytics in the panel. But then we've recently been playing around with the Google Analytics MCP, and so we are thinking if we already are connected to their analytics, we could have like an Ask Analytics like in the panel, and then that's delight, right? Like
For who? For whom is that delight?
For the customer.
No, for whom?
Because
which the marketer or the engineer?
I mean the marketer,
right?
And
but you
maybe
just told me you
wait.
You just told me you just told me you sell to
that he's on the
engineers.
call. Yeah.
So which one is it, or is it both? It can be both, but like you just told me that my example of
right.
AI wouldn't work because it's the engineer. So like, what is it?
Yeah. I mean, it is more the engineers for sure. Yeah.
Okay. But maybe the marketer holds the purse. I mean, that's actually an interesting question
it's
too.
one of the complicated parts of it that we've found so far.
Who actually approves the order? Like you said,
Usually
invoice. Who signs that?
Well, like procurement, right? Like, but somebody has to push it.
Of whom?
Yeah, probably. It's usually, again, it goes both. It could be like the marketing manager, or it could be like someone in tech, CTO, or someone who's pushing this through. It depends on like whose problem this got brought in. Like if it's the marketing person who's trying to solve it, or if it's like the tech that got assigned to it,
Fair enough. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I can jump in on the delight versus kind of
Rob, this is your show too. Just hit it.
You're saying table stakes versus delight, Jason. You're kind of breaking these things up, which I think makes a lot of sense. And what I want to say, I'm curious if this fits the rest of you, but are any feature that we ever built that was delight usually came from us. It came from our innovation. Customers did not come up with that on their own. Like, I don't think anyone asked Linear, the product team, hey, can you make it so easy to use? And everything Jason described that Linear does, that's fucking internal, right? And Superhuman, same thing. Like that was the secret sauce. That's why we say when you talk to customers to get ideas for features, they're gonna give you table stakes. They're not product people. They're gonna tell you what WordPress has, whatever other insert other blogging platform, and it's like cool. But to Jason's point, that's not delight. Well, how do you get that next 10 to 100% of delight? It is going to have to be you, your team. Every once in a blue moon, some customer will say something accidentally that is like, ooh, that is actually a delight. But most of the time, it's innovation,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, even with the current base, let's just think of one of your current customers that are not one of these, just the SMBs or whatever, who love you the most. Why are they delighted?
Probably just our general like UX and ease of use. Like once it's set up, then it solves all these problems for them because they're trying to blog in the crappy version of the blog that's in Shopify or in whatever platform they have that may or may not have something, and then they move to us, and we do have a beautiful product that is very easy to use and all of this stuff. So they are delighted that it's great, and they generally become raving fans and all that, right? Which is why we have a 2% churn, right? Like we do have a very well polished product that is delightful to use.
So one thing that comes to mind right away is that's incredibly strong, and I wouldn't forget that. I wouldn't forget that that's your strength. That's something that delights people, or at least it's a big strength. It's a big asset that you've built up over 10 years and is absolutely true. it's easy with enterprise customers or even mid-sized customers to think, oh, they're in a big company. That means they want it to look like Workday or look like Amazon. In other words, hideous, but it has, whatever features they need. No, they don't. They're human beings. They still want it to be simple and delightful to use.
Yeah,
they do.
exactly.
Now, there's check boxes they may need. Oh, you have to integrate with my login system because that's how we, everyone logs in with LDAP or Okta or whatever. Sure, because you have to, or there has to be roles and permissions because reasons. Okay, these are, even they don't like that. Even they don't want that. They just don't have a choice, and it's part of the kinds of things you do in order to just make the sale and be possible as an option, right? But nobody wanted that. I mean, as a user, and nobody wanted it.
Sure.
Security team wanted it, but I mean, as a user, they didn't want that. It's a hoop they have to jump through too. So if this is a strength of yours that it's simple and approachable and easy, you wouldn't want like, oh, enterprise has lots of needs and demands of various sorts. I guess we'll end up morphing away from this strength. I would really fight against that. It may be that there's some enterprises you can't serve because it would ruin your UI to do it. Probably not a lot of that, but I mean, just in case, then I wouldn't build that.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's something where, oh yeah, okay, the login has to be enterprise stuff. All right, whatever. Like okay, but then after that, then I would do it because you're preserving the strength that you have for the end users who will love it and defend you when the budget consideration comes up again next year or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I would keep that in mind and not allow yourself to be dragged into because I had to add a bunch of features for enterprise, now my design is worse. I wouldn't get trapped by that idea.
Yeah, I feel fairly comfortable with that statement, and seems to be something that we all kind of have in mind when we're building things. I mean, we do like to make nice things. I guess the problem here, which you're pushing on, which is what we've had, is trying to make sure that they feel good about, I want them in the higher end plans. I want to provide a value to them that puts them in the higher end plans. We have this kind of barbell thing happening because we have the self-serve people and that, and we need to just make sure that I want them to land on the page and they will be delighted with the product, but I want them to be like, oh, well, obviously we have to go with the expensive one, blah, 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 because we can afford it and it has XYZ that we must have, and that's it, and done and done and done. And that's been sometimes hard. We're getting better with it, but yeah, anyways.
It's hard putting both prices on the web at the same time. So how do you do that?
What do you mean?
If I go to a website and it says starting at $5 a month, and also we have a $10,000 a month plan.
Yeah.
You kind of go blink, 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 and you go, I don't understand. I don't even understand who this company is. I don't think I want either one. That's generally I'm just confused and I don't know who you are. And so how do you handle that?
Well, so far we've tried to figure out what our a differentiating thing was, and with the most research we did, the best we could find is the users. So that's our core ladder item is the users.
Seats.
And then that's kind of seats.
No, I'm just saying I don't care how the plans are tiered. I'm saying if I go to a pricing page and it ranges from $20 a month to $20,000 a month on the page, I don't care how you've divvied that up. It's just I'm confused. That's not because things that are good for larger companies don't do that. And things that are designed for SMB don't do that. And so I don't know who you are. So
right.
How do you, sometimes people, for example, have different brands altogether, or they'll have quite different pathways, or they'll say.
But isn't it pretty common to have a self-serve side and a mid-market side? I feel like I see all the time things that, it's $12 a month for this one, and then that we have a $700 plan by the time you get to the end of the thing.
Maybe $700 a month, but not 20. So you're thinking it doesn't go up to something like 20,000. It stays around 700.
Yeah. So right now we have two plans on the top. The one that we're really targeting is $399 if you pay annual, or $499 a month, and then we have a $750 that has the SSO. That's it. So that's what we're trying to go after there.
Which makes it a little easier, right? Because you have 49. If we do monthly, you have 49, 199, 499, and 750. If anything, I'm looking at your pricing page. If anything, loose rule of thumb, if someone says, I have no idea what to price things, I often say, well, figure out your lowest end plan, your entry level. 49, great. So with no other information, I'm like, then your next one is about 2x, sometimes 3, but 2x, about 100. Next one's 2x, so about 200. Next one's 2x, about 400. Let's just start there, right? And that's how I would talk it through. You're at, I'm going to round, but you're at 50, 200, right? So that's 4x. All right, if that's working for you, that's fine. We could talk about it. There's always exceptions. But then your next one is 500 and the next one is 750. 500 and 750 feel really close to me. You know what I mean? And maybe that's part, I guess I'm tapping into something else. Jason was saying having a $20 plan and $20,000 a month plan kind of looks weird. To me, just having seen thousands of pricing pages, this feels a little bit weird to me, having a 500 and a 750. I think if you're going to go to the effort of having 750, it's $999. Like it's $1,000, you know,
Okay.
that, again, without other information, unless you tell me, oh no, we have data and it's already working for us, right? Do you have any people on the 1,000 or on the 750?
That plan, we don't have a lot of data because it's just the main differentiator there is the SSO. So, and so like we have no, again, we're really targeting that business plan at the $499. So that plan, we can do whatever we want. If anything, it's trying to anchor that one a little bit.
Well, then I would, if it's an anchor,
Okay.
then I would bump it up even more. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, that's the point of price anchoring.
Yeah. So that one, no problem making any changes there. So
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's not clear to me what the budget is in a larger company's marketing department for this, because marketing departments are quite strapped right now. They're always being asked to do more with less, like forever and ever. But I feel like if you were looking around and wondering like, where's the layoffs / silent layoffs? You know, the ones where you don't replace people who leave, kind of a thing. And where's it getting hit the most? It's not sales, unless the company sales are low. But like generally, like sales team isn't, and even in engineering, there's a little bit, but also we need engineers to make stuff. Marketing is tough because the sense is like, well, AI can write that, and I'm not sure a lot of this is working anyway, kind of thing. And it is true that like if you're a great content creator, AI is not capable of replacing what you do. Like we like even not only we but other people and even in our industry and plenty of other technical products have really great technical like kind of DevRel cool technical content relationship people, and oh my god, that's so personal and so amazing, and like AI is so far away from being that, right? But for the person that just generates random ads and AdWords already, yeah, AI probably is just as good as that, as throwing spaghetti on the wall there, actually. Or writing crappy blog posts that honestly no one wants to read on a corporate blog. Yeah, AI can write the same crappy blog post because you were crappy already. Right? And so AI can be just as crappy, and in 40 languages. So marketing budgets are tight right now is the point. So on the other hand, people need to be found through AI, and like that's a hot thing. Again, that's why I kind of go there. Like personally, I actually don't love talking about AI. I still don't write about AI or do social media about AI. Like I still don't do that. I just wrote a book and there's nothing about AI in it. So I'm probably wrong for that, but I don't care. But yet here I am saying you should be talking about AI because I think that's how people keep their jobs now. Especially in marketing. And so I think, again, you say they'll be delighted when they use the product. I would push back and say this will be on the list of products that they don't hate, but almost no one loves any software that they use. Like the software has to be really, really good to love it. Usually it's just a freaking thing you have to do for work. And so I believe you that, yeah, but on the column of stuff I curse all the time and hate, and the column of like, yeah, I mean, that's nice. Like you're on the nice column. I believe you, right? When I use the word delight, I'm on purpose trying to keep the bar high there. And like maybe they'll be delighted, but probably it's just the next tool that they use that's better than the thing they absolutely hate. So relatively speaking, okay. But something like I'm going to keep my job now because of you. Do you see the difference between the product?
Yeah, I mean, and that's where this.
So like that's what I would want to see from you on that. Like, I get it. If engineers are coming in, it's different. Okay, then maybe that's different. On the other hand, we could say this. But for you said there is a subset of where it is the marketer who ultimately wants this and is buying it, and they need their engineers though to vet it through the demo and make sure that it's going to work. And sometimes not, maybe sometimes it's just engineers. Okay, but for the subset where it is the marketers, I just feel like you could probably go in with a much stronger positioning and message to them. That's quite literally your job is on the line because AI, and you're not writing content for them, but there's a reason why Like, can they tell a story that keeps their job, or even solidifies a job that
Right,
wasn't even their
right.
job
AI
before?
visibility stuff, tracking their mentions, showing how we connected that, et cetera, et cetera.
See,
And
I'm going for, yes, that you're now back to the how. How is it that they'll keep your job? Because they'll track mentions, because they'll get, because AI will like mention them, hopefully, in the sort of AI
yeah,
SEO or whatever we're calling that.
yeah,
That's the how. But I think the key thing is, everyone in marketing, everyone's job is on the line now. AI is the primary reason, but and lack of interest of like outsized performance is the other reason. So, like you said it yourself, we're already running Google Ads. We're kind of doing the best we can. So that's that. Right. So why would you hire another Google Ads person? And also maybe you can pay less or have part-time Google Ads people, because that doesn't really work that well anyway. So you just need to sort of keep it going, and that's it.
hmm
You see, that's someone's job going away, or someone going to part-time,
right.
or a full-time going away, and like a part-time consulting firm showing up. You see, like you already are saying it yourself. That's what everyone's saying. If you can explain to the marketer in 3 words, you're going to keep your job, because you're going to be this critical person who gets this company visible in LLMs. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Not just like, you won't hate this as much as you hate the current thing, which is true too, and important. I'm not throwing
Yeah,
it away,
yeah.
but like that to me, now we're talking like because the real question here is, how do you get like 1,000 of these customers? How do you get them
Right.
super interested and bought in? To me, even on an emotional and personal level, besides the utility and stuff, which I agree, I think the utility of this is awesome. Like, and I said that at the top, I believe it. That's kind of why I'm glossing over it, not because it's not true or not important. I just believe you already. Like going to the next step. Next step is, how do we go way beyond it's useful to them and get them stoked about it? I mean, I want them to be on their, they're a member of some random Slack channel of marketing people or whatever,
Yeah.
the alumni lists of
And
their
they're like,
last
look at this
company.
shit. Yeah.
Right, right. The last alumni list of their last company with some friends, and I want them to say, dude. I just went to my boss and was like, dude, I'm gonna get us, blah blah blah, your pitch, and I want other people in that Slack channel to go, oh my god, I have to do that. They're like, yeah, yeah. That's what. This is obviously a vision statement and not something you're going to track with metrics, but like, how do we, if we can get that right at the top positioning before the demo, not once it's
Mm.
all installed and engineering agrees and it's wired up to there, so then they won't hate it. Yes, but like, how can the bar be
Right, right,
way
right.
better than that?
Okay. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I was going to pop in earlier too. Jason's talking a lot about how do you delight, and delight is a very high bar, and there's very few products that do that. I mean, I think we mentioned Linear and Superhuman, and we could come up with a few more, right? But then there are a lot of products that maybe don't delight, that you log in because you have to, but they save your job. And those aren't the only two. We could go other things. Like if you're frankly a founder, an entrepreneur, and you're running a 5-person company, well, I don't need to save my job, but what I do need is results. I need more leads. If you can guarantee me, virtually, or promise, the promise of the product.
Yep.
So we could go down all these categories that would lead to a no-brainer. What makes this a no-brainer? What makes this, oh my God? And not only that, what makes me want to tell other people about it?
Right.
And I love Jason's example of going into a Slack channel. It's exactly what I was going to say with the delight. Like why do I keep bringing up Linear? I've never used it, never logged in, because Derek Reimer talked about, he's a very, experienced product person, kept talking about it. And then I saw it on Twitter and everyone's talking about it. I've never used Superhuman, never logged into it. Why do I know about it? Because everyone talks about it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're saying. And again, delight is harder than it sounds. That sounds like, it's like a form of virality. But the ability to get someone to save their job, or at least to have that promise, or that, it's not positioning, but it is a promises, I guess, what I keep coming back to.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing that I would say is easier, and a lot more products do that than.
Yeah. And you might think like, oh, how do I achieve all of that? But this is one of those things. And actually, this is what I just wrote this book about. There are things where you don't have to be 100% on that to make a huge difference in the company. Like, it's not like, unless, either they're that stoked or you lose the deal. That's not true. Like, even if, that's the vision statement of, oh my God, they all feel that way and they all tell people on Slack, that's the vision statement. And it almost doesn't matter what percentage do what, like that. It doesn't even matter. It just elevates everything and is far more effective. And some people actually will, in fact, live the vision.
Right.
And so it's okay, but like, it's just keeping that, because otherwise it's so easy to stay in utility zone. Because it's true. Like, you can find, oh, you need this, and I make that, and that's good. Like, again, it's true that it's good, and that's why it's hard, and it's so hard to build those other things or be those other things. In the case of positioning, it's not even building; it's being. Like, everything we just said is stuff that's in marketing. It's on the homepage. It's in ads. It's in content. It's going on marketing podcasts to talk about it. And you're using this story of like, I bet everyone listening to this podcast is worried for their job because AI, whether AI can actually replace them or not, it, like, the company probably will, thinks like that way. And so we all need ways to say, no, not only should my job be saved, but actually I'm the reason why we're going to leverage AI to be better at marketing instead of the other way around. And so here's how we're seeing our customers do that with our tool. And that, if you went on marketing podcasts and told that story, like I just said, but better, because it's all with specifics, and this person at this company did this and whatever, just, your one example. I mean, so much better. Like, then we can get to like, oh yeah, and also there's categories and tags, like,
Right.
like those are useful, but man, is that, you can see how much less interesting that is, less effective that is.
And if you're wondering, Jason mentioned a book. It's at hiddenmultipliers.com. You can pre-order it now for $24.95. Not only will it delight you, it will save your job from AI.
All right. Close the app, guys.
Hiddenmultipliers.com.
Close the app. We're done.
That's really what's going on here. This is all an ad for my book. It's like, we don't really care about you, Jesse, at all. All this advice is nothing. It won't work. As long as it sells some books. Yeah. So I think this question of the engineer or the marketer is really interesting and important. I still am wondering, and maybe the answer is you don't know, and this is actually a huge takeaway to go find out. But I wonder how much, like when you say 5%, okay, how much of that initial 5% is marketers coming in who then hand it off to an engineer for vetting and blah 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 implementation? How much of it is in fact engineers coming in the first place because they've already been told get some kind of headless thing in there, and so they search for headless blogs, or I'm not sure, and so it really is engineers from the jump who's looking at the ad and then coming to the homepage and then seeing the pricing page and then clicking demo, and it's just engineers all the way. Even if marketers prompted them from behind.
It's very mixed. I can tell you that right
Okay.
now it's not jumping off the page either one. I'm just saying, when we started doing the demos, we started getting more of the tech people than because the self-serve market was a lot of DIYers, right? Like a lot of like, oh, I started a little course, I started a little e-commerce site, don't really know what I'm doing. And now we're getting like bigger customers that are more like, again, responding to the new branding.
No, I understand, but like, how do you know when someone, is it because you ran ads specifically for marketers, targeting marketers?
No, we
with a
don't run
message
ads,
for
it's all
marketers,
SEO.
and they clicked it, and then you did the same thing for engineers, and they clicked it, and that's why it's both.
No, we know from the demos on this side just who's coming in the demo.
The demos could be several clicks in, right? Marketer comes to website, marketer sees, marketer's like, oh, I kind of like this. I'm going to need to get, now I'm going to ask my developer who's on the marketing team, or maybe there's somebody in engineering whose their team is the internal development team or whatever, and they're going to go do the demo. So like it's vital, because what you put on the homepage is not who has clicked on the demo. So it sounds like the real answer is don't know. And I think this is critical to find out. And this is part of, and Rob probably has some ideas, but the first idea is advertise to the two differently, because the message to the marketer is going to be different from the message to the engineer. Engineers, well, you'll know better than I, but it's probably something like, you got to get that blog in there, or you hate your current blog vendor, blah, blah, blah. So you need something that drops in so easily and just instantly integrates with everything. You never have to think about it. I mean, I'm not really sure, but something something about the implementation and ongoing management, how much of a pain in the ass that's going to be for them. And maybe the migration stuff, because maybe they're worried about that part. And for the marketer, again, we just talked about it. We don't have to beat the as our CEO Heather Brunner says, we don't have to beat a dead horse with a broken record, but there's some other message to the marketer that's compelling to them that has nothing to do with implementation and the tech, and nothing to do with that. So you could start with ads, like you just said. Our channels are whatever. Okay, but you could go in with two different kinds of things into channels that are new, or I mean, it could be the same tech, but new targeting. And also, where's that going? Different landing pages, even different home pages. You could test things. So I understand that by the time it gets to the demo, but and maybe the demo is the answer. I just feel like we don't know. But the way you position all the from the ads through the homepage, even maybe the pricing page, it depends, would be very different. And so I don't feel like just saying, but the demo's the demo's kind of mixed is good enough. Because your whole point is I want to supercharge inbound and grow. I'm like, okay, well, like let's not just look at several ticks down the pipeline. That's not going to be the best data for how to grow. But I bet Rob has a lot more on this topic.
My thought was on, you said SEO is your number one channel. And when I think about an engineer searching for this product, I would put, embeddable, iframe, which no one searches for anymore, but that type of thing. And I would imagine a marketer may be searching for, what is it? It's like add blog to my website, right? It's a much less technical thing. Not that marketers aren't technical, but I'm wondering if it would be clear enough to do some categorization. It's not going to be 100%. If it's only 50%, probably not worth it. But can you get it above that and be like, these are more technical terms? I would guess you as a founder have a sense at least of that. Of being able to categorize and split it up based on your organic. Because I like the ad approach, but of course you don't run ads yet. And so then you have this whole learning curve of needing to figure that out. But that's the cleanest way to do it, which is...
And then we have the price point problem, right? Problem that the ads support the higher end packages. They do not support the lower end packages. And we've always had the issue. We have done ad tests twice, like 5-figure tests. And the issue, of course, that we get is that people aren't, they need to be in market, basically, right? So you can't really run awareness campaigns, we're trying to find ways that we can do that, where we can convince people the value now that they should switch from what they're doing, this kind of thing.
No, I wouldn't do that. No, I wouldn't do that.
What do you mean?
So the point of AdWords is they have intent for something, and so you want to show them an ad. Not awareness.
Yeah. So,
you don't use AdWords for awareness, unless you're a huge brand, and then sometimes you actually do. But you're not doing that.
Yeah. So of course we could run that again. We've done that twice, but again, now our prices are a little bit
no, you
better.
haven't.
Could be better.
No, you haven't. Because you just told me that what you were doing was awareness, and I'm thinking you probably also didn't have a thoughtful message for a marketer at a mid-market company that you were putting in that ad who has intent. That's not what you just said you ran ads. So I doubt you have, in fact, tested this idea.
I think it could be retested. We were doing, in that case, yes, when we were running ads, they were very bottom of funnel high intent, but we rank for most of that stuff. So it came out okay, but I understand that there could be more specific messaging on specific things, and we're in a different place. So I can definitely see that we could have a more intentional test there. And it wasn't
also
you
weren't trying to get large companies, or let's just say not SMB. So
correct.
Whatever you were targeting was not what we're talking about.
Correct.
So you haven't tested this yet.
Correct.
Yeah. And my guess is you're not good at ads anyway. I bet there wasn't a very good test anyway.
I didn't personally run them, but okay, yes. Point heard.
The person that ran it, did they have a long track record of being awesome at it?
I tried 2 different tests with 2 different groups of people, and one was very good and one was not. So I felt fairly confident.
The answer to the question, did they have a long track record of being successful with it, is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one of the 2 ads guys that we had run the ads, I was very confident in their skills, and it was good. But again, all of your points are taken, and I think with the position we're at now, it's definitely worth running a more thoughtful test based on where the company currently sits. Makes perfect sense.
The other thing is there's different reasons to run ads. And by the way, I'm not like, I don't really have any skin in the game whether you run an ad or not. But one of the reasons is for conversions with a decent ROI. And as you said, with the SMB, that's probably impossible. And I would agree with that because this is probably a fairly contested space. I mean, I know something about advertising about blogs, right? And it's not like travel, which is like another 10x higher cost, but it's not cheap. So I totally believe that even the best AdWords person can't make a good ROI campaign for small. I believe that. But if the monthly amount is literally 10x more, and if the lifetime, and if also they stay longer, and so the LTV is more than 10x more, I actually do believe that while it won't be as like profitable over 10 years as SEO or something like that it could be a very effective way to grow in a sufficiently efficient way with this. And so I would put a different cap on it, like, oh, well, yeah, for SMB, of course, but like that's not what we're going to be measuring. If that's all it can drag in, then we're not going to do it. But so that's number one, is with the ROI of the higher plan, that's a different mentality. And how would you do that? Well, you drive to different landing pages. You reduce your target space to certain people. Like, you don't just go broad if you're trying to get to what you say is 5% of your, right? You're going to do something else. So that's number one. Number two, ROI doesn't have to be the reason you're running ads. It could be to learn how to position in ways that really get people interested. So you could run the ads only long enough to get a sense of like, oh my God, this is how you get someone to click in 4 words. Because SEO is not how you figure that out. It takes too long. Changes take too long. It's very hard to say exactly what did what. And so SEO is great for in the long run and the long term. If the messaging is already good, then it's great.
Right.
But it's bad for iterating and finding the message because you don't have iteration cycles. You can't really tell, etc. But ads are good for that. You can find out in a day, this gets clicked more than that, right? And it costs money, but you set the budget. So in other words, you can also think of ads instead of ROI to sale. You can think of it as, I'm going to use this as a temporary tool in which it costs me a known amount of money to quickly iterate into the best positioning I can get for engineers on the one hand and marketers on the other hand. I will run ads. I will send them to landing pages, which also have messaging, and see how much they get past that, either one. So that both of them can be honed from the hook, which is the ad, to the draw in, which is the landing page. And that will allow me to spend X dollars, which of course you budget, to hone that quickly into freaking badass awesome positioning and messaging, which you can then use in any way. You may decide, oh, actually, I am going to think of this as an ROI move now, actually, or no, I'm just going to use that for SEO. And when I go on podcasts, I'll know what to say. I don't know, whatever, right? But you will have spent.
I mean, it could work, I think, actually, as an ROI as well. Like, again, in the new price point, but like you said, obviously for the learning makes perfect sense, all of that. Yeah. And it is on my list of things now that we're kind of playing in this space to be testing again at some point, because it is totally different. And
yeah. And so once again, when you said before, we tried ads before, I know you tried it, but with what I just said about using it to learn and hone in on something, that's not what happened before.
Right.
So so anyway, I'm just saying like forget that. Right. This is a different customer base, different purpose.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. So, that could be amazing. And I keep saying AdWords, but it doesn't have to be AdWords. I mean, maybe it's AdWords, maybe it's other things, right? There's 50 marketing channels you could do something like this on. So maybe it's LinkedIn, or I don't know. It's, again, I think more like, but where are the marketers? Are they on LinkedIn? Maybe, actually. Are they on Twitter? Maybe not. Are they on podcasts? For sure. So that's interesting. And again, like, it's not like you're going to get 800 sales from one podcast, but if the point is to learn and see things and maybe get some and start getting a brand out there, like, maybe. And that's actually a good question, is like, where should you even go? So that might be a good type of thing to chat about.
Yeah. Do you have ideas of where you're expanding in terms of marketing channels?
Well, as far as channels, I guess back to what we've been seeing very happy customers in the big commerce space. As I mentioned, we're pretty big in e-commerce in general, and big commerce specifically is an oddly happy bunch with our product. And so we've been looking at how to reach them and thinking about channels in that aspect of like focusing on them and pushing on them. And so far we were in the early stages of testing cold outreach to those store owners, and we have a pretty good value prop for them. And the early signs of that are good, but it's still too early to know if that works. But then again, we're thinking about, okay, trying to like circle around that group and see. We're also testing out some partnerships with agencies that work in that space that will talk, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a possible option. We've also been lately getting some traction in the dev community that's totally separate from that. So like we built our product is built in Laravel. So we're like, sponsoring mostly technical, and we, went to Laracon, and like, we're kind of like involved in that community a little bit, trying to like see what the visibility there looks like.
Why
as
would
well,
you do that? Laravel's used to build apps, right?
Yeah.
So why would you do that in order to reach people to get a name for people in marketing?
Well, no, this is for people. This is not, I'm just saying this is something that we've done for people that are on the technical side, because we do get a lot of signups, as we mentioned, from people that are solving a technical problem. They come in from the technical side.
Yeah, but not with Laravel. That's not what they have.
What do you mean?
If I'm a marketer with a website and I have a tech team who maintains that website, and I want that tech team to put in a blog, or maybe the tech team thought of that, but I don't know why they would think of that. That website's not written in Laravel, so why are you doing that?
Sometimes it is.
Okay, what percentage of websites, online marketing websites, are written in Laravel? That's
I don't know.
Come on, like, why would you spend all this time there? I don't understand.
I guess because we're getting traction with all of these React. People build their sites in React as well. All of this stuff, yeah.
So why don't you go to React conferences instead of Laravel conferences if that's what they're building in? That React,
I guess because we already had our foot there. That's why, because we already knew the community and
so
whatever.
Sunk cost, and it's not really a marketing reason.
Yeah, it's just because of following what we knew.
Yeah, so that's not a good reason.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think what Jason's getting at is it comfortable and easy, or is it, or is the real potential? And I think that's a real question. Is there real potential here? Yeah, because Jason's pushing back on it, and he's brought, I love that he's shaking his head like that.
Oh my God. I mean, if you have 2,000 customers or more, if I polled them and said, how many of you identify primarily as a Laravel developer? It's not going to be most of them. It's probably not going to be even 5% of them. So I don't understand why you're fishing in the pond. I mean, I do understand because you said, so I'm being rhetorical when I say that. But like, if you're saying it's the React people, because this is like, you can be a super duper React component, I would say, that sounds awesome. That sounds amazing. Go to the React conferences. I mean, yes. Yeah. What are you talking about Laravel for?
Fair point.
Now, I will say this, just to argue against myself. There's something to be said for like, it's who we are, we love it, and it gives us life. And I would say, I understand that. And then I would say, okay, then how much time and energy can you afford on things that you just love and give you life? And the answer is, well, not zero, right?
Yeah.
So fair enough. But if you're doing that instead of doing that in a React world, I would say that's bad business.
Yep.
But if you're saying, no, I have time to do that in the React world and in the Laravel world for myself, I would say, okay, just, budget that time and energy and money so that it's part of your happiness, fulfillment, recharging, and just being the company that you are. Maybe it's even part of your culture or something cool.
Yeah,
then that
separate issue though. I get it. Yep.
Yeah. But like, God dang it, that is not where that's not the pond where the fish are. So this is not helping. It's actually removing time that you could be spending developing relationships and brand and everything and trust where the fish are, which is not Laravel. So either stop it or I get it, but like got to be budgeted way down.
That makes
so that
sense.
you can do this because it sounds smart, but do this in the right ponds.
Right. Which is, again, why we've been trying to take these notes generally, and where, actually when I watched the last episode and the first part, which he didn't have an answer for, and then I was like, oh, I do have an answer. Like our that's where I got to this BigCommerce cohort, because we have so many cohorts just like him. We have so many different
Yeah,
people.
that's fair.
And then that's kind of where I was like, oh, actually, like these are the best ones. Like,
So
it's
I
not
wanted to drill in on that. So BigCommerce is very specific because, of course, Shopify is
Yes.
the biggest one. BigCommerce is significant, but that's so curious that you have this like, absent other information. If you said to something like, in general, in e-commerce, if you have a content area that's better for many reasons, I already know why, because at WP Engine we see that too, and we have tens of thousands of e-commerce shops on WP Engine. Well, actually, we have hundreds of thousands, but we have tens of thousands that have significant GMV in the shop. So I totally get, like, you want content, you want to be findable. There's SEO. There's also trust when you see the content. It goes both ways. I see a product, I want to see content, maybe I'll buy the product. I mean, there's a million good reasons why that's effective. So check plus, I'm right with you on e-commerce. But absent anything, if you said I'm in e-commerce, I would think, well, the biggest e-commerce thing is Shopify. So I would expect that to be your number one. And then WooCommerce is very popular, but it's WordPress. They obviously already have a blog. So like, I wouldn't expect many of them to want your thing, just because that's a weird special case where it's really a blog plus commerce. And so why would they need a blog? Okay, and then maybe BigCommerce is next, maybe not. I'm not really sure. Custom maybe next. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I would think about what's next, you know? But you're saying, like, yeah, we see Shopify, but BigCommerce is where it's at for us. I'm like, wow, that's so interesting. And as you may know, WP Engine and BigCommerce also have a partnership, and we love them. So this is coming from a place of love. I just wouldn't expect that from the numbers. So explain what's going on.
So yeah, two things. First of all, and while I'll say that I will say that the Shopify cohort for us is still slightly currently larger than the BigCommerce cohort, but it's just a way worse cohort. You know, like the churn is terrible, the customer support is terrible. There's so much slop competition in their app store.
Wow.
It's just like a mess. And half of the people signing up like don't really have a business yet. So it's just a lot of hassle, right? Now
That's
that may be
terrific
solved.
insight. That's terrific insight. The number of people who say most of my customers in e-commerce are Shopify, so I'm going to do Shopify, without the analysis you just did to say, yes, by number, but they're shit and I don't want them, that's so smart what you're saying. So, okay, go ahead. I just wanted to compliment you since I'm bothering you the whole time. I got to give you a compliment.
It's very like, so I think funny enough, I think my bigger plan is like, if we were to solve it with BigCommerce, then maybe we could apply that playbook to like the higher end Shopify people or something.
Probably.
But Shopify is just so annoying for all of those reasons. And then BigCommerce, I think like the reason why people are on BigCommerce is like they either left Shopify because it couldn't do what they wanted, or they're still there from before Shopify. So like everyone on BigCommerce is like a real business that has real problems, and they're old school, and they're just trying to win the game, and they're not chasing shiny objects. Like it's not all these e-com bros. It's like real businesses. And then I did the math, just like you were mentioning with Dimitro, and it's the stores 1/7 of their 37,000 people do over $500,000 or $400,000 a year, which apparently they consider a big store. And then I did the math back on if 5% of those, exactly like in the episode, if they were to be on, if 5% of those people were to convert to our team plan, we would add 40,000 in MRR. And if they were to convert on the business plan, we'd have 100,000 in MRR. Those are both respectable numbers that would move us to the next chapter, and then we could decide what to do. So that's where that analysis led me. And maybe it's wrong, and we could do the same math on Shopify, but and the numbers would be probably bigger. I just know it's a disaster over there. And these guys, they love us. We get tons of signups from them, and they're happy, and they don't churn, and they're it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. Like, as much as I focused on the market analysis in that episode, I also focused so much on what he's good at. And so similar here, everything you said about it's just maybe there are more of those customers over at Shopify, but it's so much harder to weed through it and get to them. That is all just as critical. So I think you're analyzing it exactly correct to say, oh yeah, there may be more volume even in the good area, blah 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 blah, but like in BigCommerce, the fish are jumping in the boat. And
Right.
in Shopify, it's probably there, but it's an ocean and we're dragging around. All we see is krill that we don't really want. And so, like exactly what you said, we got to fish where we're already being successful for whatever reason. And I'm still trying to figure out what that reason is. And I think you said the people at BigCommerce are serious, period. And they're maybe old school, maybe this, maybe that, but they're serious. In Shopify, it's much more crazy town, and also a lot of serious people. It's just so much.
Yeah.
It's so noisy. And so let's just go where we know how to go and we're already being successful, and try to do 10 times as much of those. And maybe not, we can take that playbook elsewhere. We don't even have to know that right now to know that this is a good choice. It's optionality. And I totally agree with that mindset. I think that's really smart.
Folks listening, when I think about it, and I don't think you should do this, but when I think about what is the Shopify equivalent, if you could filter down to successful larger stores, it's Shopify Plus. And Shopify Plus is $2,000 a month and up, I believe. Mm-hmm. Now, I have no knowledge of that space, so I don't know if there's 10 or 10,000 of those, right? So that market itself may be very small. Obviously, there's more than 10, but as Jason's saying, if you already have people coming and they're already happy and they're BigCommerce, you follow that. When I hear BigCommerce, I'm like, well, isn't that market shrinking? Like, isn't BigCommerce actually losing market share year over year? But here's the thing. How much does that actually matter? Because they're not going to zero next year. And if you can add 40K or 100K of MRR over the next few years, as long as those sites aren't going out of, there's a difference between the actual stores going out of business, where you're going to lose customers because a bunch of them are going out, versus just the overall market share of a product going down. But the companies that are already on there are still going to need you, right? So I have a little, what I'm saying is a little bit of it's not getting bigger, and that bothers me.
Yeah.
But if you are getting, again, to Jason's point, you're having success with them. You said a sentence, and I want to ask if I understand it. You said, they love us over there, and is that BigCommerce? Like, are they specifically sending you traffic already?
No,
or are you
I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about the cohort. We have not had a lot of success working directly with BigCommerce. We have made a few attempts, and it's unfortunate because their customer base does love us a lot, and their built-in blog they don't care about. They don't update it. It's the most basic thing ever, and we solve that problem, and everybody goes home happy. So it would be a very nice partnership, but they've kind of held us at arm's length on every attempt. But we win all the SEO. We're in their app store, like blah blah blah. But they is the customers, not the brand. There's no problem, but they just haven't thrown us any bones on any of our attempts to collaborate.
Yeah, it's hard to make partnerships with larger companies.
They just don't care. It doesn't move the needle.
There's usually not really anything in it for them, unless.
Right.
Well, I mean, so WP Engine has a partnership with BigCommerce, but we're like in the same power of 10 revenue. So there is a lot we can do for each other in terms of number of customers and technology that works together, and how much impact it can have, and how much noise we can make, and all this kind of stuff. And by we, I mean together. With a smaller company, like, you can't bring them more revenue. You're not really going to move any needle. So the only time that works, I find, when it's a small company, is when they have some pre-existing strategic mandate that they've made themselves, of like, we have to get into this market, or we have to have this story, maybe because a competitor did it and they need an answer, or they just want to enter this new market and they've decided that means these 10 things, And that's where you see things like sometimes an acquisition, maybe a partnership, but like something where, because of some strategic thing that has nothing to do with like you and your customers and what you can do for them, it's like, no, they have their own reasons where they need to do a thing. Even with AI and all the spend in AI, a lot of that is boards, shareholders, the market, it depends on the company, saying, what are you doing with AI? And they're like, we got to invest in AI, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Right. And like, are they really, is it effective? Like sometimes not, but that's happening because of a strategic mandate that comes from somewhere. It's that kind of a almost fiat type of thing, where it's like, it's going to happen because reasons, Then, okay. So like, if there was some reason why it was like, we have to have a good blog, like, okay, we'll do this or that. I mean, if BigCommerce was like, this is a key thing in the strategy, but if it's not a key thing, it's like, well, you're not going to help them financially. You're not part of their strategy. Well, they don't have time for anything else. Like, all their time is whatever strategic and or whatever like gets them actually more. So that's neither here nor there. But like, it's no comment on whether you have a good product or whether they quote unquote should do it. I'm just saying in general, this is part of why, like, you're like, but your customers love us and we're in your store. Why don't you at least give us a gold star? And it's like, they don't even want to think about that shit, It's
Fair.
like, but that's great anyway. I mean, you can do it anyway. The other thing is you've said, so first of all, I know you ran an agency, right? And sold it. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I did run a web dev agency for quite a few years. Yeah.
So you know this really well. You were successful at it and so on. So kick ass, great story when you sell to other agencies. So you mentioned that you were starting to think about that or that you were doing it. So I'm interested in that and interested in that, in the intersection of that with BigCommerce. So in other words, you obviously can speak so credibly to an agency. I used to run an agency, so I get it. Anyway, I built this this drop-in blogging software for people just like you who have built blah, blah, blah website. And like, you just want a good headless blog that's super easy for you to just integrate in and like, it will just pick up all of your styles and stuff. So you're not worried about that. And marketers love it. Look, I have literally thousands of customers who love it. So don't worry about that. Your clients will love you. You don't have to worry about the blog. And the fact that you have a personal story to indicate why you understand their plight and everything. And so you can speak to them credibly. To me, that's brilliant. And so, question number one, why isn't that like a primary way that you're getting customers is to sell agencies who themselves have multiple clients. Therefore, what you let's say landing or having a relationship with, I'm just putting that in quotes, whatever you want to call that, with an agency could result in multiple sites, even dozens, and occasionally even hundreds of sites. That means customers for you. So you have this multiplicative effect with agencies. So you can afford so much time and money to get a successful agency, but even a freelancer that does one or two, still probably pretty good because you're so credible. It's so much easier to find them. You can credibly speak to them. They can bring multiple clients. Like, it seems to me this is way better than even SEO. So number one, why isn't that like a huge focus, whether it's SMB or not? And then two, and I don't want to pile up too much stuff, but so let's just stop there. But just to preview, I'm going to ask, there's got to be agencies that make BigCommerce sites. And if that's a sweet spot, holy moly. But even without that, what about, like you mentioned it, like, why isn't this a huge, major reason why you get clients now?
Yeah. So we do have agencies on all the sides. We have some agency offerings that either we work a couple of ways where we either give them a commission or they get a discount and they rebuild our clients, this kind of stuff. It's like mediumly successful. And I guess part of that is probably because we haven't put a ton of pressure on it ourselves to like be everywhere. This is mostly inbound, not outbound, and so again, we've just started with this kind of BigCommerce idea. We're just testing. There are a few, not a ton. There are a few like kind of BigCommerce specialty agencies that we could push on these deals with. So I don't have like a good reason why we haven't pressed on that. I will say like we have quite a few agencies that do work for us, and like they're not generally like runaway, like, because yes, they're building a bunch of sites, but then a blog is only on a percentage of those sites, and like, so that they sell a few, and it's fine. But I guess I get why it works, and especially when I feel like it makes more sense in my head actually if we do this pressure on BigCommerce, because at least then I have somewhere to focus. Because before it's just like agencies that make anything, like, right? But if all the 5 top agencies in BigCommerce are recommending us, then of course we have this surround sound marketing vibe going.
Right. How much time and money would it be worth to get all 5 of the biggest agencies that specialize in BigCommerce or do a lot of BigCommerce sites to know who you are and put you on at least some of their clients?
Yep.
Probably a lot. Sense. Probably worth a lot.
Yeah.
And then there may be 1,000 other agencies that do BigCommerce sometimes that you could, not get all of them, but like, now. So
or get on the radar.
Agencies,
just get on the radar.
A lot of agencies probably did this only once. Still, what would you say the median agency brings you how many clients, would you say? Okay. And so the median brand that signs up buys how many copies of this?
In the self-serve, 1. In the ones that we do demos in the bigger plans, I'm going to say 3.
Nice. Okay, so that's another, right? That's another reason why it's worth a lot more. Okay. But even if you set aside the new stuff, which we shouldn't set aside, but look, just for half second, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just said one agency is like 3 customers, just very roughly speaking.
Yep.
And we're not even trying that hard. Like we're not even intentionally going on getting them.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, like, well, wait a minute. You could afford to spend 3 times as much to go get them.
Correct.
And
but remember, they're not in market. They will be, but they're not.
what do you mean they're not in market? What does that mean?
Like needing the product right now.
Agencies?
Yeah, like they will need it soon, hopefully, but I'm just saying that our average is like, again, 3 over years, right? So like, yes, if I do outreach to them, they now know we exist. And so
I don't understand. So what?
So it's potentially a much longer sales cycle, I guess, is what I'll say.
No. You're finding an agency who needs it now. And you're willing to spend more time and money to get them now because it's probably 3 over time, not 1.
Okay.
And brands won't be tripling their spend with you over time. Okay, the big ones, but again, I'm just, setting that complexity aside for a second. A brand you don't expect to be tripling their spend over the next 2 years. But an agency often does triple their effective spend with you, or their,
right,
let's just say, right? Just again, being very rough.
Yep, makes sense.
So you can afford to spend a lot more, not 10 times more, but you can afford to spend a lot more to attract them for this first site that they're ready to go. And by the way, the pitch is, do this now. And then you have a bank of 10 or 20 existing clients. I bet for some of them, this would be a good addition to their website. And maybe the agency, in order for the agency to make money, the agency can go to their 10 or 20 clients that are currently in maintenance mode. And maybe 2 or 3 of those out of 20 would agree to a quickie new project where they toss in a blog for an extra couple of grand, $5,000 for the agency, and right? And the agency gets like a little burst. Okay, it's just a burst. It's not okay. Yeah, but they, and all of a sudden they're at 3 quickly because you planted this in their mind. Then maybe, as you say, they add a couple more over the next couple of years. All of a sudden they're at 5 because we're being intentional about it. Because you're asking the agency to do it. You're not just passively waiting around. You're doing this intentionally. You have an agency motion inside your business, even if that's one person. Okay, no worries. But you have this motion that's intentional, systematic, where you're going to the agencies you have now and saying what I just said. It's possible that you could get a median of 1 more client per agency right now if you were intentionally going back to them. And also maybe you needed the relationship with them because it's cold now. So, but let's imagine you said, wait a minute, I should be giving them a newsletter every month with just basic stuff about anything, about SEO, AI, SEO, like who cares? Like you're just staying top of mind with them a little bit. And then you're suggesting this and blah, 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 blah. And maybe a one-time thing like this to try to get a little bit more. But like, this is what I'm, when I'm thinking, when I'm asking, why aren't you spending time on agencies? I'm thinking about this entire thing that I'm talking about. An agency motion where not only are you trying to get them now knowing you can spend more time and money now to get even one site because of these reasons, but also you're nurturing this agency base. And of course, agencies that are bigger and bringing in more clients at a time, of course, you're nurturing them extra special, and then it's even better. And that's not the median, but it's growth. It's like really, really, really good growth. So
no, I think that makes a lot of sense.
But yeah. Yep. So like, I don't understand why, even setting aside the new motion, which we'll get back to, this is worth it on the SMB level because of the volume we're talking about and the fact that it can grow over time. It's worth it. So there's that whole agency channel idea. And then now we bring back in, okay, what about the bigger sites with bigger agencies, or the agency doesn't have to be bigger, but agencies targeting bigger websites, regardless of the size of the agency. In fact, smaller agencies that do bigger sites probably will do better for you. But anyway, and then you add in BigCommerce, which again, I know that's a Venn diagram, it's smaller, but also, oh my God, it could be so perfect. Like, and I bet you can find them is the other thing, because the other side is like, how do I get to them? But I bet you can find 10 to 20 really good agencies that also do BigCommerce sites because they advertise. So you can find them.
Like, yeah,
right?
They're
like,
trying to
get
found.
to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And going back to the point earlier of, right now, Laravel, you're sponsoring a Laravel related podcast, or you're sponsoring a Laravel related event, maybe attending it. I don't remember, but what would that look like? They're BigCommerce events, right?
Yeah.
What's the big BigCommerce event?
And
push there. Yeah.
That's the opportunity cost Jason was talking about earlier.
Yes, exactly.
Is if you just shifted it to this, even if it's more expensive, the results, I mean, you know what it is with cold outreach conversations, and then they see you in person at an event and they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of you. Well, suddenly this is your ticket, right? It's going to be relationship building over time.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this segment in general is they are kind of old school. So like it's almost like trying to think out of the box a little bit about like what like should we be like mailing these guys something?
Maybe
Like,
so.
like that's sort of like these are the kind of businesses these guys are, and that makes the space kind of different from where our heads usually sit in shiny object land, right? And so I think that makes it fascinating as well.
This shifts you from there's like sales motion where it's like, oh, I'm going to do cold outreach and we're going to do demos and we're going to close, and there's ABM, account-based marketing, where it's like we have 20 customers or 100, it's a very small number, and we are going to court them for years. And we are going to do everything. It's not just the mailing, you said. It's not just the sponsorship of an event. It's not just the attending event. It's you going there, participating in the dinners. If they're old school, that's what they do. They're closing $100,000, $500,000 deals with old school, with General Mills, right? And in Minneapolis where I'm, and they're flying into town. I'm not saying you have to do all that, but that's what they're used to.
Sure.
And so it's very much going to be a relationship thing. And it is, you can learn about it. There's good books about ABM if you haven't done it before. It's a whole other, as you said, it's very different than what we're used to, where we blog and then we get SEO and someone clicks a button and pays us. It's not that, but is the opportunity there, right? That's the argument, I think Jason's making.
Yeah, that's right. And your business is very successful. You still have a certain limited budget and what you can afford, especially with people. But the sort of automatic advice here would be, it is a whole world. You can get a book and learn it, but oh my God, you could save yourself a couple of years by hiring someone that knows how to do it. Mm-hmm. And anyway, it takes time. So anyway, you do need people to do it. Now, you could do that by taking people that exist and repurposing them and training them. Okay. But it should be clear why that's not as quick or effective as being able to hire someone that just brings it in and goes. But that doesn't mean you can do it. I'm just saying that out loud, just in case. And we don't have to get into your budget and all that stuff. We can if you want to, but like, I'm just saying out loud, like, this is one of those things where, having seen the movie before, it's not that they won't make any mistakes and blah, 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 but like, someone who's set up ABM systems and run it themselves a few times, they just know a lot of things and they can get it going pretty fast.
Like anything. Yeah.
And since this is higher dollar, you can afford that. But maybe you can't afford it yet, and da-da-da-da. So I get all that. But so maybe it's not for a little while that you're comfortable doing that, knowing that you'll get the money back in terms of customers, and therefore it can fund itself that way. So that's a whole calculus you're going to do. And you, of course, you're old hat in how to do that. So like, I know you know how to do it. But I'm just saying, like, this is one of those areas where either first or at least as ASAP, I think you should figure out how to fund that. Maybe not, maybe it can't be now, but like, and someone who, and it's a first in person. In other words, it's the person that figures how to build the ABM, which is a different person than the next 20 people at a larger company that one would hire to execute it. Right? Setting up the system is different than executing the system. And that's true in all sales. Any kind of sales, it's true that the setup and the execution is not the same person. So it could be that you could spend some money and have a part-time super expert. Like, there's consultants to set this up. And again, I'm not saying you must do this. Of course, look at how much you've done without having to do that. But it might be worth spending some money in that fashion to accelerate and de-risk a motion that you've never done before, and yet will be lucrative when done right. It probably behooves you to make some kind of an investment like that. So just something to consider.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure that we need to, that would be the effective thing, this account-based marketing, but I just wanted to flag that the type of customer this is to see if that, sparks anything in your guys' brains, because it is different, right? It's a little different than what we're used to and whatever. And I'm not even sure the price point exactly supports it, but maybe it does, or, maybe there's a soft version, a light version of this that's somewhere in between that does support by the price point.
$700 a month supports a lot. It would be better if it was bigger. Then it would be comfortable. But you can do a lot on $700 a month, especially if they stay, right? Especially if that's stacking up, and they're not having to call tech support every month forever, just the beginning or whatever. You can fund a lot on $700 a month.
Can I fund a lot on $400 a month?
It's okay. I wouldn't do ABM for 400, but you can do other things. You can afford to do demo calls and that kind of stuff for 400 a month. It's more like at
Right, right.
$1,000 a month. You can really like kind of do anything. I say anything in quotes. I mean, because we're not talking about enterprise sales, which is a wholly different. And then no, none of this is that. But that's not what you're doing, so it's okay. Um, I know you're selling to enterprise, but it's very different to sell to a group in an enterprise than to do quote unquote enterprise sales, which is totally not what you're doing. Enterprise sales is we're installing Workday for $10 million. That's you're not what you're doing. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, you understand it. A lot of people listening may or may not understand that
I
yet, but
didn't. I learned the hard
yeah.
way. Like, hopefully your new book will give us all the tips and
Oh,
tricks on how to differentiate between whatever.
Hiddenmultipliers.com.
that's actually not in there. So
Hopefully it will be
unfortunately.
hopefully it will be
But that's
I love
because
it.
there's so much room for so much better stuff. Okay. Yeah, it's actually when I take it back, it is in there now that I think about it. It is in there. It's kind of funny.
Figured.
hopefully it will be a great companion to the other book I recently
Yeah.
read.
Oh,
Bob
here
book.
we go. These are complimentary. Buy
SaaS
two,
playbook.
a 2-for-1 deal.
Which marketing channels can I now afford that at my price point has moved to?
That's right.
It's in there
The SaaS playbook. The best part of the book is the preamble. But anyway,
because Jason wrote it. The
so
forward.
yeah, yeah, maybe ABM isn't the first thing you jump into. I think that's very fair because it's totally new, and so it's not the first thing you make. But what Rob said about like, wait a minute, if we're sponsoring conferences and going to things and doing events and doing podcasts and going places, it should be BigCommerce.
That should all be there.
It should be BigCommerce, not Laravel, or it can be both. But as long as you're careful, and you're sliding Laravel into the fun column and the fun budget.
Yeah, we need to slide more things into the make more money column. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So BigCommerce, and then maybe there's more like agency stuff.
Yep.
Agencies have conference too. Now that might be harder and maybe less specific and therefore less effective. And so maybe that is a bad idea. Maybe. I think BigCommerce is a better idea because it's so much easier and more obvious what to do there. Another thing that we did at WP Engine is we ended up making our own online conference and then inviting other people to be there. And then we, of course, talked about stuff. And that was very effective. We actually did it in person and we switched to online during COVID. And in person, it was just unbelievably effective, but it's also unbelievably expensive. So, of course, you wouldn't start with that, right? But once we went online, it was very effective. And we had some really neat tricks. Like we pre-recorded everything. And that allowed even people that like didn't work at WP Engine to like record and edit and stuff, which is kind of nice. And then, although you might say like, wait, if it's pre-recorded, that's kind of dumb for a live thing. But then what was neat is we would say, well, the speakers, since this is recorded, the speakers will be in chat. So the speakers will chat with you in real time about their own thing while it's going on. And that was actually really cool. So we kind of spun it's recorded into an advantage. And of course, then there can be live Q&A. And that worked pretty well and wasn't as expensive as in person. Now, all that still maybe is more money and effort that you want to spend. But what that does is it really solidifies you as the expert in the thing. So if you had an event that was like, here's how to get into, this is about sort of blogging in 2026. And your message will be something like, in 2026, the blog isn't a separate website. It's just incorporated into your website. In 2026, a blog isn't just about SEO anymore. It's about getting into LLMs. In 2026, and there's a third thing. And like, those are the 3 topics for the day. And it's a half day thing, or it's, 4 talk thing,
But are you saying as a general or as a BigCommerce specific?
Well, I mean, that would be up to you to think about. I think adding a BigCommerce thing, maybe BigCommerce is a talk in it so that it can be more general than that and you can get more people to come than just BigCommerce people. But maybe one of the talks in there, by talks, it could be 20 minutes, it could be an hour, it's whatever you want, because people will drift in and out when it's online anyway, right? And so you could have one for BigCommerce so that you do advertise it as a thing in BigCommerce, but also just in your whole customer base. And so if in your 2,000 customer base, you say like, we're doing this, there could be a lot of goodwill and bringing up as you're being the expert. And then all these agencies that have already worked with you, you invite all of them to that. Again, bringing up as a expert that you're then going to come after this event and say to those agencies, hey, so maybe some of your clients would be interested in some of that. All those are pre-recorded. You can get them on YouTube. And so I don't know if some of your clients would actually find that to be interesting, but like maybe some of them would want to do this. And now there's something to point the client to because it's you talk, or your company being the experts or something like this. Or maybe you get an SEO expert to say that and say it about you, but it's under your banner, so that you're bringing in that credibility and expertise from somewhere else too, and showing how you're all of, it's under your banner, so you're all this kind of a thing. And so so it's an excuse to invite everyone to get top of mind with these agencies, especially maybe brands if they have another one, but especially agencies who might have more clients, and also agencies you haven't worked with yet, and try to cold them and be like, hey, we're doing this thing. It's online. It's easy to pop into. Maybe you'd be interested in. Who knows how many of them will do it? But like, it's an excuse. It's an excuse, right? And so it's a lot of work and it's a lot of expense. But since you just said like, maybe we want to do something a little more creative, what could we do? And again, I was just thinking like, how do you want to go to your existing agencies and new ones and existing BigCommerce and new ones and get you top of mind and maybe get another client out of some of these agencies, because that would boost your revenue a little. In the long run, getting a one-time boost is whatever. But if you can go from, if you can increase growth, if you can get even a pop of growth, that's one time, but meaningful. And now you're top of mind in an agency that could do it again in the next year or two. I think that's very good. Like, you could call it tactical and I would say, okay, fine. But like, that's a really good tactic. And it's in your strategic area, which is more agencies, more BigCommerce. I think that's, if I were setting your strategy with just this conversation, I would say it's more agencies, more BigCommerce, because agencies is how you get multiple clients per year and therefore internal growth. And BigCommerce is your best single way of getting the big growth. Now, also there's the brands. So you could say there's a third leg here, which is the bigger brand website. I would say, okay, fine. If you think you can focus on that many things at once, which I don't believe you, I would focus on those two. And then when the brands come along, you say, great, and you sell them, but it's not your big strategic focus. That's what I would say. So I would say like your conferences is BigCommerce, but when the bigger brand calls for demo, of course you do that sale. You of course spend the time on that sale, but who are you making features for? Who are you building this webinar for? Who are you going and seeing? Who are you doing conferences for? I would say it's agencies and BigCommerce, if I were setting your strategy, because that's your super, super sweet spot. And again, that may be wrong. You might pick a different one. You may think you can do 3 of these at once. Anyway, that's a long, I mean, I'm brainstorming here, right? But like, it'd be interesting to do, if that's your strategy, then tactics that give you significant bump in growth and also promote the strategy, that's a good tactic. Like a little more SEO, not that interesting, won't move the needle.
Yeah, I mean, this is always, we're trying to find
that actually are targeted, that could permanently move the needle. So that's pretty good.
We've been trying to find this kind of optimization versus growth thing. And, a lot of the things that we've been doing for the last few years are optimization, and they're moving the needle too small. And that's where we pushed into trying to create an offer for these larger businesses that are willing to pay, that are more established, that are longer LTVs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where we landed there. And it seems like so far that BigCommerce are the ones that like those a lot, and other just general larger brands, old school brands seem to be liking that offer as well. So that's where we're pushing toward, yep. And then seeing if we can sell some of those higher end plans to those kind of guys instead of these fly by night starting people kind of thing, right? Which is why we're trying to avoid this kind of very blankety, sort of marketing-y sort of, you should start doing blogging kind of content, because it's a lot better to get somebody who's already doing it and we make it better for what they already flow that they have, right?
Something I want to touch on in the thought process here is SaaS companies plateau for different reasons. And I've seen folks online on X, Twitter, and they're like, I plateaued. What should I do? And it's like, well, it depends. Like, why are you plateaued? I can't answer that. So I did a talk at MicroConf. Excuse me. I believe it's on YouTube, and it's called like the 7 types of SaaS plateaus. And I basically came up with them out of my own head. And then I went through all the tiny C companies and I posted it, and then I posted on Twitter, and I was like, every reason, let's figure it out. Right. I gave the talk, and I think I had all of them. I kept saying, I gave it twice, and I kept saying, if I missed one, let me know, because I want there to be 8. And if there are 8, let's get 8, right? Let's gather this for everybody. The reason I bring that up is if you're on social media and you see, especially indie hackers, but it's folks who are early bootstrappers, it's like, oh, I've plateaued, so I'm going to now try this whole other new strategy, but they're at 5K MRR. And you're like, wait,
Right.
slow down here. You know what I mean? Like the odds are like nothing's really working yet, right? And you're at 1 million ARR and somewhere north of that, and you're plateaued. It could be optimize channels, add a little more to it, right? But that sounds like you've already tried. Exactly. You've already tried that. And it's more of Jason has a really good essay called The Elephant Curve and the Myth of Exponential Growth. And it talks about how everything plateaus. And then at a certain point, you have to change strategy. Sometimes that's a new product, like HubSpot kept doing that. Salesforce, a bunch of them have done it. For you, it doesn't sound like it's a new product, right? It sounds like it's a new strategic direction. It's a new customer type. It's another big marketing or sales channel. And I'm calling this out for listeners who are wondering, or who may hear us saying, obviously you're plateaued, so you should go do this big ABM thing that we're talking about with BigCommerce. It's like, well, but if you're plateaued at 5K and your reason is not the same reason as Drop-In Blog that you're plateaued, don't listen to this advice, right? Come on here and have Jason give you, tailored advice, because again, there are at least 7, probably 1 or 2 more reasons that you could plateau. And each of those reasons, once you figure it out, it's like, okay, now that I know that, the first step is just trying to truly assess why. And then it's like, well, here's the next step to do it. And all of those, it's different flowcharts, right? It's different flowcharts for.
Yeah, that's good. I do see that a lot, right? Where it's, and we were trying to make sure that was the case, which is where we really pushed, like, with SEO being our main channel, it's like, are we sure that we're, getting everything that we get? And then we started pushing hard, making sure we're ranking, moving higher up the funnel, whatever. And then it clearly became, that. And then, and the max MRR comes in the curve. And then, okay, now we need to start reassessing here. But then when we do see that bigger companies do want to spend more money with us, they do want the product, the TAM is kind of insane. We just need to figure out what the most efficient way to get there is, I guess.
Nice. Jesse, is there anything you feel like we haven't covered enough, or that's on your mind, or you're worried about, or you just want, even if it's unrelated to everything we just said, is there anything else you want to cover?
Well, let's pressure on this a little bit with it sounds like you guys subscribe to my push on the BigCommerce concept. And as I mentioned, like, okay, we're looking to like cold outreach those, we're testing that, seems to be whatever. But like, what's the normal, like, when if we're finding that this is the like what are the next steps that you guys would take if you're in this exact situation? You've identified this thing, you're trying to sell this $3.99 plan, you're doing demos with them, it's going good, but like what are the main other things that we're not doing or that we haven't talked about that seem like might be the action plans for the next 6 months or a year or whatever on this idea? Or is it bad? Like, or should we be looking at, like, is it not this niche? Should we be staying broad or whatever?
Do you mean, when you're asking this, do you mean in addition to, or outside of the BigCommerce kind of agency focus we've just talked about?
I mean like the actual,
like, you want an action plan. Like, what do you actually should do next, right?
Yeah, like, okay, sure, we're targeting them. Like, what the hell does that mean? Is it, again, cold outreach? Is it advertising? Is it like, what are, like, again, you're in my shoes. This is you. You know the revenues. You know where we're at. Like, okay, what's the 6 month, like, these are the things I'm gonna put my energy into, because of course there's a million things we can all do, right? And as you so gracefully pointed out, that we shouldn't be wasting our time on some of the things, and
maybe
so,
not graceful, but yeah.
so cool. It's your company now. It just got dropped in your lap, and it's this is your lifeblood, and you want to win the game. So let's go. What are we doing?
I can tell you what I would do. So I've never done ABM myself. So I would either, if I had money, like Jason said, hire someone who has done it before, who has got it from 0 to 1. Now, in order to hire them, you have to know if they're good or not. So then I would probably try to work my network to find people I know who are good at it that could give me advice in hiring. Okay, if I didn't have the budget for that, I would, I mean, I'm in the Tiny Seed Network, so I would, but let's just say you're outside the Tiny Seed Network, right? You're not a Tiny Seed founder. I would look for either a coach, probably a coach, to help coach me on what should I do to answer that question. And I'm saying this is me. Like you are saying literally, I'm dropped in. I don't know how to do ABM. I've read a couple books on it, but I would want someone like, of Jason's caliber who knows ABM, if that makes sense. Like someone who's really smart and could just bust my chops once a week, twice a month. That's the cheap way to do it. And then I'm going to do the hustle and be like, this is the plan. This is a solved problem. We don't have to invent, you know what I mean? And even if Jason and I don't know if he's done ABM, but even if he and I don't have a plan for you, there are people out there who are screaming at their speakers right now saying, well, you would do this, that, that's everywhere. This is what works, right? I just don't know that answer. So I would find someone like that. Comments. Yeah, exactly.
I was just about to say, this is where a seasoned YouTuber, not such as myself, would say, go to the comments and it helps promote the channel and gently scrape the subscribe button or whatever. And so hopefully people already know that.
Yeah. But your answer then is do it in ABM style, not like all the other channels that you might know and love, right? So you're telling me that if I drop this business in your lap, your first thing to do would be ABM. I don't know if I buy that.
Yeah.
That sounds hard for you.
For me, probably. But yeah, and maybe
that might not be your go-to.
Yeah, maybe I would do, whenever I do something,
this is going into Rob. I love it.
Suddenly I feel nervous. And look, anything I do, I like to try to learn the rules so that then I can kind of do it my way. And my way usually has a tinge of Rob Walling to it. So my ABM would be, well, of course, I'd probably start a YouTube channel and I would run that in-person event that Jason Cohen talked about, right? I don't know why I'm using your last name, but the Jason talked about. It's like, because running or online or in-person events, like those are things that I'm good at. And so I would put my spin on it. And I am using ABM loosely because it's like, I'm sure there's a textbook definition of that. And would I do all of that stuff? Probably not. But I would take the pieces that I'm like, well, we have the budget for that. Well, I can do that part for a while, even though I don't like it, but I'll try it for 3 months. And then the rest of it is fun. And I'm going to keep doing it. So yeah, I would do very
the first thing you're going to do is start a YouTube channel.
Don't do that. Don't do that. It was a little.
The company is shrinking now after I gave it to Rob. This is going.
Yeah.
Really
Rob started
crazy.
A podcast and a YouTube channel, and no, but relationship. I mean, this is the thing I would want to be known. I would want to start being known in this space. Whether it's known because I don't really want to build an audience. I don't think that's helpful. But the network, right? I always say build your network, not your audience. That's what this is about. Like you're trying to build your network in the big space, and specifically if you can with agencies.
Yeah, your network and brand. So okay, so here's what I would do. First of all, I would gather the entire company together and say, we have a new strategy for the next new strategy period, which means we're going to be doing some new things in the next 6 to 12 months. Now, by new strategy, I do not mean we're pivoting the company and forgetting our roots and going somewhere else and doing a new product. That's called a pivot or something. That's what companies do when they're in big trouble and last resort and all kinds of stuff. That is not what this is. So actually, I wouldn't start by saying we have a new strategy because that makes everyone scared. So let me roll that back. I'm going to keep all this in because it's useful I think it's useful to see the thought process. Because I realize, as I'm saying this aloud, oops, no, people are scared as soon as you say new strategy. So don't do that. I would say everything's going well. We are crushing it with our 2,000 customers. There's very little churn. That's how I know we're crushing it. That's how I know. But we want to grow. And we have found that there's new growth areas, specifically in larger customers with BigCommerce, as everybody here knows already, because we've been doing these demos. Sometimes they're brands. And so there's these bigger plans. That's starting to work, you guys. It's starting to work. Like at first it was like, well, will this work? We don't know. We've never done demos before. You know what? Look around. It's starting to work. And so we now want to do that intentionally. And you know what else is working? BigCommerce. And I know everyone here knows that probably, but maybe not everyone does. Maybe somebody's got their nose in Visual Studio all the time and doesn't know that. So again, whole company. So some of you may not know this, but like we're actually seeing some really nice green shoots in these larger plans. Doesn't take very many of those customers to grow the company because they're 10 times as much revenue. And sometimes they buy 3 sites. Oh my gosh. And we're also seeing this in BigCommerce in particular, which is super interesting. We think that's because ABC, this is giving you, just teaching everyone just enough that everyone understands. Here's what's happening. Here's why. Oh, this is so smart. Oh, this is based on stuff that's objective information. So everyone's getting excited. Okay. So here's what we have a new strategy for the company, which leans into these things that are working, these new things that are working really well. Notice I did not say stop doing the thing that's also working, which is the 2000. We're not stopping. It's and, not instead of, you guys. So because this can be growth, and that means we'll be able to hire more people again, so we can do and not instead of. There may be in the future new things we're going to do for BigCommerce people, but we'll be able to hire people to do that and not leave our existing customers behind. And there's stuff we're going to do to try to get more of those big customers. But since they pay us so much money, we can afford to do new things, whether that's spending, people, campaigns, whatever it is, because it gets new customers that pay us a lot. So this is this is an expansion of some things that are starting to work already that we want to lean into on purpose. So hence our strategy is not to move away from what we're good at, but rather to say, wait, and now we're seeing these green shoots in these mid-sized brands and in BigCommerce. And so in the next 12 months, it's everyone's job to succeed in these new ways without leaving our old customers behind. Now, we all have different roles. So what it means for all of us to do this is, of course, going to be different for each of us. It could be that we're writing code. It could be that we're making a feature. It could be we're talking to a customer. It could be we're doing a sale. It could be we're talking on a webinar. Who knows? Like there's all manner of stuff that's happening. We're all going to have our role to play, but that's what we are going to do, because that's how this company is going to thrive in the next 12 months, because we're staying true to who we are, true to our roots, and expanding in these ways that we're seeing that customers already love what we are, with just a little extra here, this and that for the different kind of customers. They love our product, but they also need SSO. They love our product, but they also need, and so we're gonna not forget why our product is beloved. And then we're gonna add these things in for BigCommerce. And by adding, I mean product, but I also mean marketing, sales for BigCommerce and for these bigger brands. And that's how we're going to continue growing our company. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, we're definitely going to be at this revenue and this time, like that. That's not what we're doing here. We know this is an intelligent way for us to grow and thrive in this world with people who already love what we have, maybe with a little plus this, plus that because of their special case, but basically already love us for who we are. And so everyone's going to do that. And you're going to see over time how we do that. And if you have ideas for that, if you see things like, great, that's what it is to be strategic here for the next 12 months, is to add those on without forgetting who we are. And you'll cut what I just said down by a third, because I just repeated myself a lot because I'm brainstorming. But you see what I mean? You're bringing the whole company along into this, what we are doing. And so that's the first, maybe not the very first thing I would do. You might want something of a plan, because then when they say, okay, so not like what? You don't want to say, I don't know. Okay, so and we'll talk about, and you ask like, what should I do next? Okay, so we'll talk about what those are. But that's one of the things that I would do next, quote unquote, in air quotes, right after
align the team on the adjusted, updated mission.
Yes. Otherwise, they don't know what's going on. Maybe they even fight for things or whatever. You need everyone on the same page. They'll have ideas. And also just they're brought along. It's just nice to be brought along in the mission and strategy of the company. In fact, I would say the mission hasn't changed. The strategy of exactly what our sweet spot is in the market is expanding. I would say your mission's not changing. That's why this strategy is so good. It's an expansion about who we're serving without changing who we are, our culture, our mission, our goals. This is not an identity shift. This is expanding into areas of the market that we have seen has some green shoots and are right for us. That feels much more comfortable than we're changing our mission or something like that, which you're not anyway. Now I picked those two things because that's kind of what you said coming in. And I think it's smart, and I think you could just do that. If it were me, I would trade the bigger brand for the agency. In other words, I would say everything I just said, except I would be making the case about agencies. Agencies build us into clients, and over time, there could be multiple clients. In fact, we're going to be communicating with them and asking who else in their
As
client
in
base.
broad agencies in general,
Yeah,
or
well,
big conversation?
yes, in the sense of the agencies, the kind of agencies that are already customers of yours or indirectly customers of yours, that kind. I would actually say we're gonna be great for agencies, and we're gonna go after them and we're gonna nurture them. So in other words, I would replace the big customer with that. I would still do all the big customer stuff, but I wouldn't make it part of my strategy because I think it will happen anyway. Like when you go after the larger big commerce, you will also get those other brands. And I think the agencies are your route into some of those things. I could be wrong about that. And you could say, look, man, I've got these motions that are working with the bigger brands. Like I, that's silly to not be part of strategy. So, you will change this how you want. I just don't know that you can have all these different focuses. And I think agencies are a better business model for you than brands, because an agency can bring one, you can tactically maybe get one or two more out of existing ones, and over time they'll bring you more. So in other words, an agency sale is effectively a thing that can grow over time. So as you accrete them, they're growing over time. And so your business model with agencies is a parabola of revenue, whereas because each agency themselves adds, that makes a parabola, as opposed to a brand that comes in and then that's flat. And you never know how to get them to pay you more. Now, maybe you figure it out, but in general, I bet they come in and never pay you more. Like, actually, your pricing indicates they don't. And now I'm rolling back a little there, but this is actually really interesting, I think. When it's $50 and the next one's $200, no one's making that jump. I say no one, obviously, okay, 3 people did. But it's way too much of a jump. Like, if I'm just using it more, I can't go from 50 to 200. It's a ridiculous thing to ask me to do. Imagine if my cell phone plan went 50 and then 200. Like, what are you talking about? Like, just because I get a little bit more traffic or something? That's crazy. That shows me segmentation. Like, I'm not going from 50 to 750. That's a segment thing, right? You're segmenting the audience. That's not growth. So, okay, setting that back aside. So brands are roughly speaking flat, and agencies, roughly speaking, can grow. That's a wholly different financial business model. And one of those is super strong. It means you grow over time automatically. Not automatically because you're doing relationships with the agencies, but like easily, okay, naturally. And the other one is like, I have to fight for every one of them. And so I just think agencies is a dramatically better business model for you.
And do you think they should be incentivized financially or just
Sure.
courted?
Either way, what I find is agencies vary in what they want. Some want a kickback and want that, and that's why they'll do it. Okay, fine, you're fine with that. But others are just the opposite, where they say, if my clients ever found out I took a kickback for advice that I gave, that would be the end of my relationship with that client, and probably the beginning of the end of my whole brand. Because of course, I'm not a freaking affiliate. I'm a high-powered agency. Like, are you out of your mind? Like, getting a little kickback from you is worth that. That's crazy. Whereas with freelancers, often a kickback is a substantial amount of money compared to what they're charging, and it is actually part of how they have a livelihood. And by the way, I'm not judging anybody either way. I'm just saying both of them exist in large quantities. So that's why.
And how do those offers coexist in my agency court?
Because you're talking to the agencies. You just say like, hey, I've noticed some people just want to work with us because we're awesome for them and their clients. Some people want a kickback. Some people are offended if I say kickback. So I know that. So just whatever you want to do is what we'll do. And that's exactly what I even said at WP Engine. I literally said that to agencies at WP Engine, like word for word.
And
so that's what I would do. I did do that. So that's what I do.
And a question might be,
what would I do? I would say agencies is a better business model. We're hitting the agencies and big commerce. That's what I would do. Although I understand that you have the new prices and it's working. So even as I'm saying that out loud, I can see not doing what I said and instead either adding in the big customers also, although it just sounds like too much to do at once at your size, maybe at any size, but certainly at your size. It sounds like too many things to do at the same time.
But they're the same. Like the big commerce part of that push is that a lot of those are the bigger customers.
Okay, so there you go. So maybe I'm right, and it is a big commerce and bigger customers. And yes, you'll get bigger customers that are not big commerce. And of course, that's wonderful, but it just won't be your biggest. Like you're going to go to a conference for big customers in general, whatever that even means. You're going to go to the big conference, like when you focus on, focus your efforts that. So here's the next thing I would tell my whole company. So strategy. So here's what we're doing for the strategy. We're going to have a czar of agencies, and we're going to have a czar of BigCommerce. Or, okay, that's a crazy ass word. So maybe it's not czar. Maybe it's a lead. Maybe it's a, whatever. Okay. There's somebody is going to own that. They're going to get up and go to bed every day, and all they're going to think about is, how do we crush it with agencies, or how do we crush it with BigCommerce? That's all they're going to think about. Now, that person may have to be you. It depends on how your company is and blah, blah, blah. Over time, maybe you'd hire for that, maybe not. Over time, maybe you groom someone who's already there, who you think has the ability to think like a product manager, think more like a business owner, and you want to groom them to that. So maybe they get put over that, but you're holding their hand the whole time because they're not really ready to fly by themselves, but you want to get them there. And so it's a kind of combination of putting them up, but you're going to be propping them up a lot behind the scenes, but they're going to have a shot at this. And they would be super stoked, and they're going to work extra hard because for them, this is like a massive opportunity for them. So again, I don't know your company, so I don't know, but like maybe there's people like that, or one of them's like that, or maybe you have to be that person for another one. And maybe
there's options there. We have a good team.
And, we're not, okay. But the point is, like, when you do a big initiative, someone has to be the owner, and they're getting up and going to sleep thinking about only that. They won't be perfect at everything. They'll know more about engineering, less about marketing, more about sales, less about engineering. Like that person's not going to be excellent at everything. That's not the point. Their role is that they own this. Okay, you're going to prop them up probably, but like this is their thing, and this is all they're going to think about, all they're going to measure, all they're going to be brainstorming about, all the project management that they're doing of like all the irons in the fires is going to be this, and they're going to think about only this, press for only this, prioritize only this. Now, they won't be good at everything, so they'll need a team, or you're helping, or blah, 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 blah. They'll have some expertise because they came from somewhere. They came from customer service. They came from marketing. They came from engineering. There's something where they do have it in the bag because that's where they came from. And then everything else, okay, eventually, as it's successful, you'll build a team around them, eventually. Or maybe you realize you need a different kind of leader, but they're part of it. Okay, so all kinds of things could happen. But what's bad is what doesn't work to me, is you say, here's this big strategic initiative, we're going to go after BigCommerce, and then everyone's like, okay, well, who's doing that? Like, I don't know, like we'll just generally fold it into stuff that we're doing. That's not intentional enough. And what happens is, so not only is that going to be not organized and not effective enough, but also every time something appears for the rest of the business, the other thing will take precedence because that other thing is the existing business. There's existing customers tied to that other thing. There's an existing sale in the works tied to the other thing. So it will trump the new thing that doesn't yet have 2,000 customers on it, that doesn't yet have millions of dollars attached to it. That thing will always get sidelined because there's always something in the existing business that needs attention. So you have to cordon off the new thing to say, this person's running it, and and it has this marketing budget, and But also we're watching about, well, how much revenue are you getting from it? Like you're going to start breaking out your agency revenue from your BigCommerce revenue from everything else, so that you can see what's up here and how much you should be investing. And, we can afford to hire blah, 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 or pay for blah, 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 because the revenue out of this thing and the cost base of the thing is because I broke that out now because I'm so focused on it. And now when it's like, well, the agency person wants to do this and the regular company wants to do that, you're like, okay, but I've set up my budget for costs and I'm seeing my revenue. So I can now make choices about when I steal from one to pay the other and when I should not do that. Right? Because otherwise I'm not being intentional about actually focusing on this for real. I'm just saying I'm focusing on it. We sometimes do stuff, but I'm not really doing it. But doing everything so you're going to tell the company, that's what we're going to do. We're going to split that out like that. Then maybe you'll already have it split out by then. That would be great. Because how cool would it be to say, so right now, a third of our company comes from agencies. A half of almost all our new big revenue comes from BigCommerce, which is actually only 10% of our revenue now, but it's going to be half in 2 years if we're successful. And you see what I mean? You can like start telling them that the shape of that right now. And then of course the goal is for each of them to do the right thing to grow in their own way, which are very different. And that's another reason. I know I'm going on and on, but hopefully this is actionable. All of this is actionable. Another reason you want to split it out is they're going to have different ways that they operate. Like with agencies, to me, it's like relationships. You're going to email them newsletters. You got to stay top of mind because the whole point is ongoing stuff. I think you should do a tactical thing when you go into clients that they already have, but you may need to warm that up somehow with some newsletters or things, or maybe you do some kind of weird event or something, or you join somebody else's event, something where you kind of get that warmed up so you can do that tactical thing and maybe get a big burst of stuff that grows that segment a little bit and gets you top of mind. I think that would be amazing. And then there's probably the top N agencies that are worth you like talking to them every quarter or every month as a relationship type of thing. Who knows? But like, this is the point, is like, there's this whole mindset of like, what should we do to nurture this? And then of course, how do we get new ones? That's going to be its own universe. And the way you get some small SMB to come in on SEO and how much time and money you spend is dramatically different from everything I just said. I mean, there's like nothing in common other than the product. And at BigCommerce, again, there might be very little in common. They're a little because there's BigCommerce agencies. Okay, but you see what I mean? So when everything is different, how we talk, what we say, what we do with current customers, how we get new ones, our positioning, if all that's different, it makes sense for that to be cordoned off, not as a different business, different brand necessarily, but like different people that stay in this mindset that's very different than the people sitting next to them, because it deserves
and report it differently so they can see that the needle actually moved on those things, and these initiatives are focused in.
And how you know if they're doing a good job will also be different. Like if they have a newsletter that has a pretty good open rate, then that doesn't mean sales, but that part of it's doing well. But you don't have an equivalent of that somewhere else. Or maybe you should have a newsletter. I don't know. But like, let's suppose a newsletter for other people.
We do have a newsletter.
Okay. But those are still different, and you might be looking for different things there, right? You may have a newsletter for SMBs, but the goal is retention, not growth. But you have a newsletter for agencies and the goal is actually growth. Like next client. So you have a different way of measuring that. Or again, like, I think you should segment your agencies. Here are the big ones that could go really far. Here's this long tail that doesn't, and we're going to treat them differently. Well, that's different metrics than you're going to use than in the SMB brand side, where you're not doing that, right? So just, you will of course work out how to manage those different things. But the point is that the behavior, the metrics, what it means if we're quote unquote doing well, those are all going to be different, or at least they may be different, very, very often are different. And so having them cordoned off is helpful in keeping straight what good looks like everywhere here, and what kind of people might need to hire because we have this gap. Or
that all makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say companies doing really well. Here's what the green shoots are, and why it's a great business model for us, because they're bigger or they grow over time, whatever the reasons are. And so we're setting up now. Maybe you have to run all those now. I would hope there's some people that you can groom and bring up in your company, and you haven't hired only people who are incapable of having some responsibility. But again, we don't need to get into that, obviously, but like here, but how can you organize that in the team and then say, okay, so we're doing this, here's who's running these things, and maybe here's a couple of things we're going to do. So like, in the agency side, it could be, we're going to start we have our newsletter, we're going to have an agency specific one, which maybe reuses all the content, but adds agency stuff, like whatever. But like, we're going to have an agency one because it's a little different for them. For example, agencies need content they can then turn around and give to their clients to sell for us, whereas a brand doesn't need that. So that's an example of something we're going to be doing over on the agency side. Like, so you don't need to give everyone a super duper detailed plan of everything, but like if you just have an example, like on the agencies, we'll have a special newsletter. On the agencies, we're going to do a campaign where we ask, do you have another client? And also we're going to give them material for that. That's and you could just say, those are examples of some of the things we're going to do in the next 3 months, which PS, that's what I would do, what I just said, over there. And there'll be more stuff like that, but that's an example of what we're going to do next to try to like start nurturing and getting some growth from that channel, and for the right reasons. Then over in BigCommerce, we've been at Laravel a lot, and we should. It's our roots, and we love them, and they love us, and like, we love it. But the truth is that marketers aren't there, and the engineers that build websites don't build them in Laravel nearly as often as other things. And so what we've realized is, BigCommerce is doing so well. This attitude we've had in Laravel, which is so wonderful, we're going to bring that to BigCommerce, part of the community. And what does that mean to be part of a community? Oh man, events and making content for it and proactively doing stuff. And maybe there's podcasts and maybe whatever, right? And now, again, this is now on you to decide, and we're going to shut down the Laravel thing because we don't have time. Or, hey, it's not that we're going to forget about Laravel. It's just we need to rebalance our efforts a little bit, since Laravel is great for us, and so we're never going to stop. But we need to rebalance how much time we're putting on Laravel versus how much time we're putting in now BigCommerce. So we want to we want to have that presence there too. And so we're going to be rebalancing that. So that would be a way of saying, okay, I'm not shelving it, but you should expect us to do a little less there in terms of time and money, a little bit more over here instead. And of course, as BigCommerce grows, we can do more of both, by the way. Like as BigCommerce grows, you could elect to put more budget in the fun stuff, of course, and still do a lot in Laravel. Like you can do that. But like let's go build up some more profit so we can do that, right? And you don't have to tell everyone that level of detail. I was just saying that for you, right? But like, you know, that's what we're gonna do. And then, and again, what else would you do in BigCommerce? Of course, in both agencies and BigCommerce, there's all kinds of specific marketing you could do. You have all these channels that exist and new channels that didn't exist. Will you do SEO and stuff? Sure, but we all know that's just okay and slow burning. That's not going to help immediately. You want to get some more results in the next 3 to 6 months. SEO probably isn't the way to get results in 3 months. So while you'll probably do that because you know it, again, I would go back to the ads we talked about, and either in an ROI sales perspective or in a learning and positioning perspective, or maybe it's both, or it starts as learning and turns into ROI, something like that. That's what I would do. Where would I do the ads? Like Rob said, I think I might try to get some advice from people who do a lot of ads or have done ads in this area who might be better at that, or even in the area of blogging or I should say marketing stuff for BigCommerce. What is working there? Is it AdWords? I mean, it might be, but it might be LinkedIn. It might be other things. Okay. There might be podcasts people listen to. I think that's interesting, especially to get going. Maybe podcast is more of a branding thing. Okay, fine. But still, like that in the early days, that might be useful. So I would use that to learn, how do I position? I think with the agencies, you know how, because they already are here. They already kind of get it. And it's a motion now, a go-to-market motion of how do I sell through agencies, not how do I change my positioning entirely for agencies. So that's probably not it. But with BigCommerce and the marketers, like we talked about, again, your core value, I know, but like we talked about, how do you position things certainly for utility in that area? Because for e-commerce specifically, okay, it's going to be other things. Your case studies are going to be about BigCommerce customers, so you're going to put that together for that track. And again, like where's that super delight that's just over and on top of the utility? And I think you can do it, but that's going to take a little bit more work. And you may not have that for your big announcement to the company, but like we talked about what that could be for marketers. There might be a similar thing with BigCommerce. I don't know. The marketer at the BigCommerce company who is old school and who doesn't understand AI and who is scared. Like that sounds like a pretty good, direction. So testing, how do I position for that really gets them going emotionally and personally? That is what I would do in the first 3 months. I might use ads to try to do that quickly, and also calls and stuff. I would use these various tools to try to do that as quickly as I could, because SEO is not quick and not really much of feedback either, to be honest. And anyway, it's declining. Like it's just weird. Like SEO is weirder and weirder, I think, as time goes on, and not that helpful for that. So I know I've just gone on and on, but hopefully that was useful, and also useful for people listening who are thinking like, how do I do anything new at my company and get everyone along? Because you have more than a dozen people there. That's a lot of people. And you want everyone to be very comfortable that like, wow, this is cool. This is a cool future. We're leaning to stuff that's working. We have a couple things to do. Obviously, we're going to figure out a lot. Like it's early days, and you can say that. Like we've just started these green shoots. It's smart to invest in this, and we have a couple of things to do right now. But obviously, over the next 2 years, we're going to learn a ton. We're going to learn a ton about what to do. So a lot to come, a lot of learning to come. But we know what we're going to do next, and we know why these are the right things. And like, this is going to be we're going to bring what everyone loves about us. And we're going to motivate agencies to do it with us at bigger scale. And there's these bigger companies with BigCommerce who see the value, and in fact, they see even more value, as evidenced by they want to pay us more. They see more value, and we say, great, I love that you're getting more value. How can we give you even more value? And that's going to be a blast to do.
That's good. I think, well, at least now, yeah, there's some like actual tactical things in there that I think were a little less broad than some of the other parts of our conversation. So that's helpful. And this like kind of random how to kind of position this with the team is quite helpful, because I definitely don't consider myself an expert team leader. So those tips are always useful. So I appreciate that. A while back there, Rob, you had something in your head. You might have lost it by now, but I would love to hear it.
I was just going to say, can you tell Jason has run big companies before? Like when you said, so what should I do? And I said, hire someone or go do it. And Jason's like, all right, you're going to sit everybody down. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess you have to do that too. I don't tend to run big companies. What was the thing I was going to say? Oh, the thing I was going to say.
Have someone else. I love having the different,
the perspectives, right?
Perspectives.
It's
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It all needs, both things are right. It's just the order. Yeah. It's the, how you handle it. The thing I was just going to add, I know we're wrapping up, but it was, if you give a kickback to the agencies, then they get the money. If you don't give a kickback, the question is, well, then why are they doing it? What's in it for them? And what's in it for them is you are no headaches. You have their fucking back. What does an agency want? They want you to show up maybe on a call with a client when stuff's going sideways, that you make them look amazing, that you support the hell out of them. No hassles, return phone calls, blah, blah, blah. They want premium level support. That is worth way more money to them than 20% commission. Now, all of them won't know that, but that's it. I mean, I'm sure Jason.
I have heard that. I have heard that in some of our conversations where I'm leading with, oh, you could add some, bottom line MRR. They're going, but like, no, I need you to answer like my emails. Like I want your email, like that kind of, and I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Of course. Like,
right. Of course we can do that. But we have our partner Slack channel that you're in, that the agencies are, or whatever, I mean, we could go all, Jason and I could probably talk for 20 minutes just on how to provide value to agencies. But the thought there was, just because you're not offering them money does not mean there's not a lot that you can offer them.
I was just more curious, how to position that and how to offer it or not offer it. But like, what you guys said makes sense, where you can say like, it's there if you want it, we can talk about it. But if that's not, here's all the other, this is helpful. So basically,
I would just say, I've found that, and again, I wouldn't, it's not that I would say what I actually did say many, many times. I've found that, some agencies want a kickback and some are offended if you talk about a kickback. And so I just say, hey, whatever you want, we're here for it, like no matter what, we're going to be partners, and just everything Rob said, exactly that. And also the agency wants to make money off their client. So adding a blog is a project that makes them money. So you're an excuse to go back to a client and have another project, or a way to win a client that's against something else. And because they'll have this better blog because they can inherit your features as part of their RFP, or maybe they're cheaper because they can do it this way instead of building the blog themselves. Whatever the reason is, that's of course what they want, is to make more money with their client in the way they normally make money. Right. And so again, if it were me, when I go back to my existing set of agencies that have worked with me before, that's the pitch I would make. Hey, I bet you have other clients where it really would be better for them to have a blog. Like they should be doing content marketing. They need to get in those LLMs, and this is how to do it. And you could tell them that, and you could show them that, and then together you could do it this way so that it's affordable enough, but you can charge them whatever to drop a blog in, to coin a phrase, and get your clients going here, and of course making money for themselves. So that's the pitch I would make. It's a new project for them to make money. And maybe it's a kickback. Yeah. And it's good that as you talk to them, of course they'll tell you what they want. Like that, they will definitely do that.
And then tactically, you think, what is this cold email to let's have a call? I just want to tell you about what this can do for you. Is this like, what's that
for a new agency or an existing one?
Yeah. New. Like what's a path to getting on all these guys' radar?
Well, I mean, to one extent, it's the same as how do you sell anything to anybody? There's lots of marketing channels, so that's the answer.
Yeah.
Now, at WP Engine, we had the advantage that WordPress has an incredible community of people that do things like go to WordCamps physically and chat online a lot. And so by literally going to WordCamps and talking to people and then chatting online a lot, we were able to, quote unquote, get to agencies, but really meet them, right? And they could meet us personally. So in the big commerce world, that might be possible to get to know people in mass and quickly through some kind of online or offline thing. With agencies generally, that may or may not happen. Like, I don't know if there's more general marketing agency stuff. There might be. But you mentioned even stuff like React. Like, there may be other excuses to get into places where the marketers are already going. Podcasts can be another. I know I keep saying that, but podcasts nowadays are a place where there are places where lots of people, lots of marketers listen to the podcast. So if you're going to need something interesting to say there, but hopefully that's probably a good idea anyways. But that's a possibility to start.
So I need to start like marketing for big commerce owners podcast.
Well, yeah, on that side for sure.
I don't know that I would I wouldn't start a podcast though.
No, not start a podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, and go on that.
You look for the ones that are existing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need stories to take there to those podcasts. But people who run a podcast are often looking for something good because they gotta do it, right? So if you have something good,
it's very actually quite easy now because we can talk about this AI visibility mentions.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to know about that,
Yeah.
and we have lots of information about that, etc.
Yeah.
Please see my recent talk at MicroConf on Rob's channel.
That's right. Yeah. So like that's yeah, to some extent it's the same answer as how do I market to anybody? There's all the normal channels. That's
Yeah. But it is different though, because like, for example, we market to anybody with SEO. They're solving a particular problem, blah, blah, blah. That's how these agencies already found us. But if we're trying to build these relationships in a different way, it needs to be a little bit more intentional, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, usually the answer comes down to where do they already go and how can you be, what's an actually genuine good excuse for you to be there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's often just the answer to all it's a generic answer, but it's often is true. So it's like, right. They all listen. These are the top 10 podcasts that small agencies listen to. I was like, okay, well, you need a couple of topics that are actually interesting, that you can add something actually useful, which you do have. Right? So fortunately you have it, but one needs things to say that are interesting and a little bit different. So you can go on, so you have a good excuse to go on there. And that's one answer, because that's one of the places they're at. It could be LinkedIn. There could be referral fees, right? Like for the agencies that like referral fees, okay, well, agencies refer stuff to each other all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. There's even affiliates. Again, I don't know that that's a good place for you, but affiliates are another example where you pay for traffic. Now, normally they give you pretty rough traffic, so it's probably not a good idea. But I don't know if there's affiliates in the agency space. That could be an interesting combo, but I don't think that's really a thing.
No, I think more some sort of agency to agency referral. But I think this, showing up where they are, whether that's podcasts or particular subreddits or et cetera,
Well, good. Well, we've it's so funny. So the first episode went over 2 hours and I thought, oh, that's too long. And then a lot of people are like, at least put it in like a podcast or something like that so I can pause and resume. But actually it was full of meat and I liked it. So I was thinking like, will this go that long? Maybe we'll just do an hour. And then no, but I feel like we did a lot, we said a lot, and we covered a lot of good ground. And so I'm happy, and we'll just see if everybody else likes to hear 2 hour episodes again. I had a lot of fun. And Jesse, was this helpful? Do you have a better idea of what you want to do next?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of takeaways, and I appreciate the putting on the pressure and calling out some of my stuff. That's great and helpful, and good to hear both your like sometimes contrasting perspectives. I appreciate that, and it's awesome. Looking forward to. For me, this is all uncharted territory, right? Like it's I'm like many of the MicroConf crew, the product led, like blah blah blah. I'm never doing a demo call, and like the thing I keep getting quoted on is I was the I'm never going to take a demo call guy, and then we plateaued for a year, and I was like, I can take a demo call.
That's usually what happens.
Yeah, the ethos changes quickly, right? So now I'm still been in this exploratory phase about like how. I know that we have so much more headroom I just don't know how it works. And so this is part of that exploratory process. And I appreciate you guys helping me out. And I look forward to coming back on a similar episode in 6 to 12 months with our amazing new bending of the curve,
That'd be cool. I want that. Rob, any last words here?
I had a great time. Thanks for having me on. Jesse, I know that no plan survives contact with customers. So the moment that you do anything, you're going to be like, well, what Rob and Jason said was kind of right. And you're going to learn. I mean, within a month, you'll know some of the stuff we said was right and some was wrong. And that's the part of being a founder, right? Hard decisions with incomplete information. And it's gathering the data to then 2-3 months down to not pivot, but to just course. So that's
yeah.
That is really good advice. Let none of us forget who's in the arena.